Well, here we go. Hey, everybody. This is Perch, and I've got just with me Larry, who's I've interviewed before. Larry decided to join me on this stream. Larry, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the company. It's good to talk with you. It's good to talk about comics, talk about interesting and fun stuff. And we're
Yeah.
we're here to do that and answer questions. And if anybody has questions, we'll answer them.
Yeah, exactly. I know it's just casual. I mean, there's so much going on with. We've had 2 solid weeks of scandals and people. The dirty laundry coming out in comics. We probably have several more weeks left of it. We've got this Whisper Network story that broke yesterday that a lot of people are talking about. We've got anger and viruses and no schools and cats and dogs living together. It's a
mass hysteria.
mass hysteria. So again, thanks for coming on. It's fun. Last time I did this, it was like an hour and a half, and I talked myself hoarse. So now you get a share in that burden.
Feel my pain, Larry. Feel my pain.
It's funny. It's going to be fun. I mean, it will just be wonderful fun. No, this is not the Diamond Comics Sweet Angel Larry. This is different. This is comics creator Larry.
Yeah.
Not comic shop owner Larry who likes Diamond.
No. I'm Larry King. I am Larry. I am the real Larry King. I'm not Lawrence Zeiger. I don't have many ex-wives. I didn't get cameo in Ghostbusters. I wish I did. Love that movie. But,
yes, indeed. Well, there's some people who are with us. So thanks everybody for joining in. And as you see on the screen, ask anything you like. We'll answer it. We'll see what's going on. I've had a lot of fun a couple days ago doing the video what I loved about comics. A bunch of people said what they loved about comics. It was good back and forth. So now we're just eliminating the middleman. So ask. There's no super chats or anything. So you just ask, and unless I'm a fool, which is quite possible, I will grab your question. We'll answer it. Why not?
Well, you're not a fool. Like you throw yourself under the bus a little too often. I mean, it is still. I don't know what I'm talking about. Half the time when I do my videos, I mean, I think everybody knows at this point, I'm usually driving when I'm doing it. And so there's no research going on. It is literally what I'm remembering off the top of my head. And sometimes that works out, and other times it's terrible and I mispronounce names, and it's lots of fun. Well, I noticed something. Robert Willing asked this really early on. He asks, Perch, what do you honestly think of? Do you honestly think it's truly best for comics long term, the writing, idea, or the art? Because I think the writing first and foremost.
No, I mean, curious what you think. I agree. I think the right, well, they all come together. I mean, I think if you have one and none of the other, then you have a bad product. You have to bring all of them together. But I do think long term, you have to have a story. You have to have a direction. You have to have a goal of getting somewhere. So if you have that nailed, your comic can survive for a very long time. If you have a good idea, a good concept, good stories, good characters, etc. The art can take you so far. It's a critical piece if you do nothing. But if you have no story and great art, I mean, you're making posters at that point. But what do you think, Larry?
I think it could be. You look at certain comics. X-Force #1, Youngblood #1, the Rob Liefeld stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Story, who needs it? Writing, you're just there to collect a paycheck. Like the Fabian Nicieza and everything. He was like, not writing coattails. It's just like, hey, we need a writer on the book. I was like, okay. I like getting pages and having to make sense out of this. It's like having to try to make a plot. It's like, oh, this character Gideon and all this and that. Mm-hmm. These comics are still around. People still, kids would pick these things up, which is horrifying to me. But whatever. It's like I'd rather them. It's like go to the good comics. Good comics. John Buscema. Even Sal's good. Not this. Ooh, look at this. You can be something very striking visually, and you can catch eyes. But like, look at the stuff that sells the best. Look at Dark Knight Returns. Look at Watchmen.
Yeah.
Hell, even look at people still praise Hush. The Batman Hush and everything. Like the stuff that go Long Halloween, Superman for All Seasons. These things. Like you can have pretty competent writing and amazing art, or amazing writing, pretty competent art. Because I love Dave Gibbons, mm-hmm. But compared to he's no John Buscema. He's not like his style is very him. It's very matter of fact. It's kind of no frills. It's like It's kind of, I'm not saying dollar store. It's not that, but it's like you get what you get. You're not getting nothing fancy. You're not getting, but considering the guy cranked out like 32 pages a month for, basically a year, and then they were 1 month late. So 13 months, really it was about 20 issues worth of content packed into 12 with all the bonus material and extra pages, all that.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking a lot of comics. And so, you know what? Not too many people could do that then or now. So, so yeah, I think honestly, it's not to me, it's not a simple answer, but I'm visually, it's like I bought many comics that look terrible. I enjoy them. I still read them. But yeah, at the end of the day, you gotta have a solid mix of it all.
Yeah, it does. They do have to come together. And as I'm not going to even try to pronounce this. As the comment is on the screen right here, put the best artist ever on a comic if Bendis is writing it. I'm not buying it. I mean, how would you see the art? Like the bubbles would cover up the art. You wouldn't even see the art, so you wouldn't even know who's the best artist. I don't know why are they spending putting top tier artists on Bendis books. I mean, no offense, but like you like Bendis, you don't like Bendis. Like I feel bad for these really top level artists that are getting high page rates and then like half the page is covered up with. I mean, you're wasting your money at that point.
Exactly. Comics are a visual medium, and Bendis works best like with Torso and Goldfish and stuff like that. Even Powers, that is best Bendis. But when he took the corporate side, everybody loves his Ultimate Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a fan of it. I read it, and it's like one of those things. Oh, you'll get to like it. Same thing with his Daredevil. Oh, you'll like, why am I reading this? But it was one of those things, just going through the motions, hoping to like it. And I got near the end of Bendis' run. I'm like, I didn't even like this. I didn't even bother finishing his run. It's like,
he's an acquired taste. He is. I mean, some people like him, some people don't, and it's fine. I've liked some of the things he's done, absolutely, and then I've not liked other things. But I just it does. I think in this marriage of great story and great art, you can't cover up all the art.
No, you cannot. You need it to breathe. The art needs to breathe. That's one upside about like Batman Hush, which is it anything groundbreaking? Oh hell no! It's a greatest hits album. It's like, let's say the best villains, the Killer Croc stuff. I didn't care for like that. He's mutating his form, and then like when Israelo and Rizzo took over the next arc, they made him Pimp Killer Croc, which I hate that version. I like the Carney kind, the sleazy Carney under, the Chud, cannibalistic humanoid underdweller, version, and they ended up just making him like a pimp. But the Loeb and Lee knocked it out of the park, but it was nothing, amazing story-wise, but the art, beautiful. And then Jim Lee would come in and do the watercolor pages.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's some great stuff in that. They're really understated. I think whether you like the story or not, here's somebody is commenting. I mean, there's different, people like or dislike the story and everything else, but there were some really, really nice different things. I mean, Jim Lee was experimenting with some new techniques in that series that a lot of people have forgotten at this point.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking at a comic that's only 20 years old at this point.
Yeah.
Which is it's 30 years old for X-Men, 20 years old for Hush. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's some interesting times out there. I mean, that's after, wow. Yeah. We got another question.
There's a lot. Yeah, we're missing, but this one conversation. We got a bunch though here.
Oh yeah, we do. Definitely not Batman asks, what are your thoughts on Tintin comics, story, art, pacing, by etc. by Hirsch?
Yeah,
it's one of the first few comics I read as a kid, alongside Donald Duck and later Batman Hush.
That's a weird progression, I gotta say. I mean, cool. You went from Tintin to Donald Duck to Hush. That's a
hey, you know what? You want some good comics? People, American. God bless. I understand American comics. We're superhero, or focus on superheroes. But dear Lord, you go anywhere outside of the U.S., Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse,
for sure.
All that stuff. It's it's like what was his name? Not Carl Barks. The other artist. Oh my goodness gracious! The other Donald Duck artist. I'm blanking on it now. I cannot remember. It ain't Carl Barks. It was the other artist. But I saw him at a convention, and he had a like Big in Italy, T-shirt. Mm-hmm. It's like that's the funny thing. It's like a lot of these, like might not be picked up as well on in the United States, or appreciated as much, these comics, because back in the day possibly, but.
You know what's funny and then to your question with Tintin, so I like Tintin. I think Tintin is one of those books. First of all, there's a lot of them. I mean, you got a very I don't know. Now I'm going off my memory. It's like 60 years more of Tintin. There's a lot of Tintin out there to kind of digest, and it's huge. But what's interesting is if you're in the West, you probably have heard you've heard of very few kind of European based comics, and there's some really good ones out there that have really long runs. And one of the things I like most about comics is when you can pick up like 10 years worth of comics, and you just know you're not in for like an afternoon of 3 or 4 comics or more than that. You're in for hundreds of comics that you can read and kind of dig into. And Tintin brought a lot of people into comics in Europe, and a lot of people just don't even know that. Don Rosa is who you're thinking.
Judd, I was going to chime in, but I was going to interrupt your flow.
Yeah, no, that's but I really I recommend people reach out. I probably should cover more. I mean, there's some pretty amazing European comics that do a lot of interesting things. I think
Hugo Pratt with Corto Maltese, which most people think Corto Maltese like, hey, ain't that the place from Batman Dark Knight Returns? Yeah, that was Frank Miller homaging Hugo Pratt's work. A lot of Tintin is one of those books they released the smaller like digest size hardcovers with 3 of the volumes inside, and looking at it I was like, okay, this looks, but these are serialized in newspapers. These were supposed to be newspaper sizes shrunk down to digest, and so it's like very hard to read the art. The lettering is so tiny. So I eventually got around to, I was like, I'm gonna start buying the album size, the proper size, books, whether softcover, hardcover. And I was like, wait a second. I didn't know that, like, that ain't the first book, is it? So I look into it, and here in the U.S., they censored in Tintin and Land of Soviets is Tintin in the Congo, and Tintin and they didn't carry it, or it had it for a while, and then he's like, oh, we're not gonna put that on the cover anymore. It's because it's like showing the horrors of the Soviet Union, and at the time it's like no, that's propaganda, that's Western propaganda. It's like until stuff coming out. But then Tintin Land in the Congo is much more controversial because of the patronizing attitudes, the racist overtones as people. The band, when I bought it, it was in plastic with a paper band around it. This is from many years ago. Different attitudes prevailing. Like, it was like. Yeah, it basically had this like, okay, by opening this up, you may be offended. It's like, yeah, good. At least have it available. Don't like just let it go into. And I was expecting something really horrific. Wasn't that bad actually? It was dumb, but
not that bad. I just think it's funny though, because there's kind of 3 zones. There's more than this, but just at a very quick high level, you've got the Western zone of comics. You have the Asian, you have Korea, you have Japan, you have a lot of stuff coming out there. And generally speaking, in the West, we know about Japan, we know about manga, and we know about a lot of the Asian comics, but there's not that crossover into Europe. Generally speaking, now a lot of people are making comments calling out kind of the big books that are huge over there in Europe, but they're worth looking into, especially if you're one of those people who's frustrated right now with the direction of Marvel or DC, and you want some other things to read. Like, just know that there is 5,000 comic books over there that are in Europe that are generally translated now. You can get your hands on them, and you should. Like, they're there. They're waiting for you to pick up, and you can spend thousands of hours kind of with something new. So if you haven't done that, I super recommend it.
Well, same thing. Not just Europe, but because people say UK, so that's not Europe. Whatever. The 2000 AD books, Rogue Trooper, ABC Warriors. Pretty much everything 2000 AD, Rebellion owns 2000 AD now, but 2000 AD or there's a great book called Third World War, Pat Mills and I believe Carlos Esquera. But you have other stuff. You have you have a book called The New Statesman. What's New Statesman about? Oh, it's about these 51 superheroes who represent all 51 states, the 51st state being the UK, because they get statehood, and they all like, one's name is whatever, Mobile, as in Alabama, and this, that, whatever. They represent each state, and I was like, oh, when this comic come out? Oh yeah, in the late 80s. The Avengers Initiative with the 50 states. Oh, it's familiar. One of those deals, but it's pretty good. It's really almost like sci-fi horror with superhero elements and everything.
Oh, there's some good stuff out there. There's good war comics. There's good sci-fi horror comics. There's just a lot there. Jeremy asked, it's kind of his fault. By the way, I will answer all the questions. I promise. I will bounce around as they fit with each other. But for me, Asterix has a close place in my heart. European. I'm not sure why exactly. It was one of the first ones I got into, but I like that comic. And over in manga world, I love Rumiko Takahashi's stuff. Rama One Half, Lum. I know that's not the name, but I love that stuff. And I'm a huge sucker for One Piece. I do think that I enjoyed it, and then my kids absolutely love it. And then through them loving it, I started loving it more. I think, and I did a video on it. I'll post up soon. But One Piece has a lot of elements into it that are just like the template for how to create a comic. If you're in the US and you're trying to create your own world, your own characters, your own story, like they lay it out for you in One Piece. So just like, here's how to have longevity with that comic. It's a script for how to do it in a lot of cases. And it's amazing how many people do not follow the obvious there.
That's one of those things looking at is so daunting though. One Piece.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like, and this is what you'll get with a lot of European stuff. But One Piece does something that I think that a lot of the Western comics and the publishers are always talking about how they can't get people into comics, and they can't, we need to have jumping on points, and if the numbers get too high, people they won't know what to do, and they won't get in. And meanwhile, One Piece bravely plows forward. I mean, they're on year 23, I think, and they're with weekly stuff, and it's ridiculous, but it's accessible. You can come in easily into that series. There's a million characters, so you definitely have very dense continuity, but everybody who's jumped into that, even if they jump in the middle, can easily find their way front and back and get to where they need to go. And I think it's the proof that you don't need to worry so much about accessibility for new readers if you just have a good story and a good comic.
Yeah, the same thing back in the day, like X-Men.
Yeah,
I didn't pick up Uncanny X-Men with #1, and even if you did, it didn't matter because, really, the book had to be that much of a stinker to go away for so many years. Just go back into reruns for a while, but there's a lot of comics. I mean, most people I know didn't pick up comics with issue 1. They picked up a random issue, oh wow, this is interesting. I'm gonna go read some more. And it's like this idea that, but you got to start from the beginning. It's like. Do you meet people when you go in everyday life? Do you meet people and when they were born and then follow them through their entire life? No, you meet them in the middle usually. And it's like comics or stories. It's like same thing with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but that's a long running one too. But a lot of European stuff. It's that quality over. I was looking at some of the prices of the Elric and Melvin Bonnet, the hardcovers, Julian Blondel, the French, the bande dessinée stuff. And they're looking at 48 pages, hardcover, full color, album size, all that stuff, $15, $16. And I'm like, this is quality, primo stuff. Not much of it. That's the thing. It's when they put the stuff out, even Black Sad, that's a one most people probably have read or have heard about at least. But yeah, it's these quality stuff. It takes them a while. They're not pumping out this stuff monthly, but when it comes out, it's an event. It matters, and that's one of the few things you can say about a lot of There's a lot of American comics that come out monthly, but it don't matter. It's like it's like this one really matters. We mean it this time. Asterisk 50,000 times they've said it.
I swear to God, somebody at Marvel has a Mad Libs kind of book for writing solicitations. But in this one, everything changes. You will not believe the adventure. People will be talking about it for a month. Nobody's talking about it. Just stop with it. I now read the solicitations in this funny voice just for myself, not even on the air, because it's just ridiculous. But anyway, so hey, if you're joining us late here, I'm on with Larry King, independent comic creator, has done a ton of stuff. You should definitely check his work out. He's pumping out comics just constantly for good money too. What is your comic cost?
Usually it depends. My most recent one, which is sold out, Root-Tongue Adventures, which was a 84-page black and white digest size comic. That was $16. That includes shipping and everything. That is in it. I'll ship within the U.S. and everything. That'd be $16 international. We'll have to figure out where I'm shipping it to, and actually have to add in the extra few bucks for that to cover the shipping internationally. But usually $6 is what my 20-page black and white traditional size floppies cost. I got a new comic coming out at the end of the month, early next month. The icon of called Flapjack Grave Concerns is a crime horror slice of life romance, slightly with mature readers because
Slice of life.
Language.
Larry. Slice of life. You're going for the tween market. Good for you.
No. I'm going for like 11 Rockets, more 11 Rockets. It's like, but it's rated mature audiences due to nudity, language, and gore. So it's like, hey, unlike Invincible, I don't feel comfortable just showing bones popping out of skin or teeth flying out of people's heads. Or, you know what? You got to put some nudity in the book. You know what? Balance it out.
You got to balance it out. That's true. Yeah.
Hey, the CBLDF exists for a reason, right? Let's test. Let's test them out. So they gotta make up for that guy they hired. They gotta make some mea culpas.
You gotta do that. All right, I'm way behind. So let me get some. So one question that's coming up here that I'll get to is how do we pay you? Please let us send you money. That's very nice of you. That's very kind. I don't have super chats. The super chats are you ask the questions and I'll answer them. I appreciate everybody asking for money. Monetize and buy better audio equipment. Well said. That is on point there. The challenge is it wouldn't work because I believe it or not, in my little work studio here, I've got a good microphone. I've got a good little pop, whatever the hell it is, the thing that goes over the microphone that keeps the spit from flying everywhere. That's not what it's for. Anyway, I'm usually wandering around, so I'm doing these videos. You guys don't see the other side of it, and I promise within 2 to 3 months, you'll see my face. Not that anybody will want to, but it'll be fun. It's going to be funny because when I do that, I'll wear like a giant Pooh Bear mask, and then I'll be in the furry channels and make a lot more money. Anyway, I'm wondering. I rambled there quite a bit. I'm wandering around. You don't know, like you're seeing like all of the whole Seattle area. Well, you're not seeing it. You're hearing it. That's what's going on in everything. But I typically have resisted the monetization super chats. I don't like that. I feel forced into doing it with YouTube, but I should have an announcement here in the next week or so. Larry and I have been talking, and I should have kind of an idea of where, because I'm collecting now a little bit of money from the channel because of those stupid pre-roll ads at the beginning, and I'm going to put that money where I think it belongs, which is to get comics made. So that's the idea. But anyway, I'll announce something soon. But anyway, generally, we'll do this. By the way, when the audio is bad in the car, this is me being stupid. So this is an example. I think like I know technology, I know comics pretty good, but this is an example of me being really dumb with audio. So my phone, which is recording the audio, syncs with the car. So every now and then I can catch it, and I'm working off the headset, and the audio's okay. And then sometimes the phone is syncing with a car, so then it's like all routing through that terrible microphone thing that where you have the voice control in the car, and it is that's when it's super trash. But then I don't know it until I'm like 10 minutes into the video, and I happen to look at the phone. I'm like, oh crap, it's recording through the car again, and I'm too lazy to re-record it. So that's what you're getting inflicted with. There you go. Yeah, so that was a long story. Anyway,
eventually I'll take your money. Bug will hit you. Eventually.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I'm happy.
One of us, man. One of us, right?
I'm happy to take your money in a shop, but I don't do that. I'm trying to think about, because I will have a comic that comes out next year. I'm working hard away on it. I promise. Larry's seen some evidence of this.
Yes, I have. It does exist. This isn't vaporware. Vaporware. This isn't some. These are actually. This isn't just some cover that you hired some rando or semi-median level name to do. It's like you're actually doing everything yourself, which
everything.
Is
it's true, but yeah.
I can't. I seriously cannot stand ringers doing covers. It's like I don't care. Like there's one book in particular. The book, like pretty decent, if not good, interior art. And they got like a cover artist because of some of a name. I guess he was hot at the time, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're throwing your interior artist under the bus. It makes me think you don't have any confidence in that interior artist. That you just got him because whatever you can pay for him.
It feels like that. So there was an announcement from Boom today about, they're promoting these artists coming in, and I always feel like it does send this subtle message. Maybe it's just the way I take it, but I'm glad to hear you say the same. Of like, you hire an interior artist, you put some weight behind them, you're paying them, and then you let somebody else come in and do a cover. It feels like you clearly don't have confidence in interior artist. And sometimes I get it, like you're wanting to get Art Adams in to do a cover, and the interior artist is actually one of your big names too, but you want to do that. I still hate it. I just wish the interior artist and the cover was the same, or Alex Ross doing the Captain America covers. But how does it feel to be the poor Captain America artist who's not that great, but trying to hone their skills? They have their big 2 job. They're getting paid their $100 a page rate, whatever it happens to be. And then Marvel's got this Alex Ross cover, which seems totally bait and switch. If you're coming in to buy that comic, and I know myself and other owners have said, hey, just so you're aware, the inside is not like the cover. Just don't want to mislead you there. But it always feels so scummy to me.
It's one of those issues I have with, kind of modern day comics. Back in the day when you had like a house style, I had posted something like, you can have a Sal Buscema interior with Keith Pollard cover. It's not going to too jarring. It's, a different artist, but it's not too jarring. But you go in Alex Ross cover, and I don't know, I'm trying to, without, I can't think of like any, there's more people that probably named worse artists, like, so, whatever, bad Marvel artist, number 423 here. It's jarring. It's extremely jarring. Or even like a Ryan, like a Alex Ross cover, Ryan Otley interiors. Like, even that's too jarring for me. The guy, Ryan Otley's a good artist. Put him on the cover, that kind of thing.
I at least think you should have like the primary cover done by the interior artist. If you want to do variants, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan, but do your variants with your fancy artists and everything else. But at least show some support for your interior artist. Maybe nobody sees it that way. I just always feel like, and in some cases, I know there's situations where the interior artist for the entire book is getting paid less than the superstar artist they have come in doing the cover. It's rare, but when that happens, it just seems like the biggest FU to that creator.
Yeah, I think the cover would be a lot easier to do than the interior page, and also because artists on the interior would have like maybe something, like where back in the day when covers would actually kind of represent what's happening on the interior. They weren't just pinups. And I don't know, maybe go about having like, hey, we got this character on the inside, like have him like grab the hero, like say, we have the Super Scorpion. Oh, he's whatever, Super Jack Scorpion. He's grabbing Spider-Man, and like you see like the costume all like bunched up in his fist and like gonna do something. Have that on the cover, something interesting. But no, it's like a pin-up, and he's splashy image, and it's like, who cares? Oh, the Spider-Man cover, that one where they changed the costume from the original costume to that new Miles Morales garbage-looking one. That right there, it's like, what is she doing? What is going on here? It's like one of those things. It doesn't like represent anything. But yeah, that's comics in general these days. Like most of the covers, I try to make my covers represent what's going on in the interior. Though my Rutong Adventures, which should be coming back in stock, limited copies because of pandemics and all that and all the issues. I don't want to stack of books collecting dust, but that right there, 3 stories in one. I could do like a 3-paneled cover. I don't really think those are that visually appealing, so I went with one epic image of Rutong on top of a mountain with lightning in the background, a la, a little Dark Knight Returns ish. So there you go. It's like, have something represent the interior.
I think that Ian brings up a good point here. He says I disagree. The cover being more detailed is a good thing. It's designed to give you a strong image to catch it. There's some truth to that. I do understand that perspective, and certainly with books, you hire a cover artist to come in and you do the book, but the inside's all text. I just think that it's lousy when it feels very deceptive at times, and especially back in the older days when you didn't have the artist listed on the cover, so you were truly misled by you're getting covered by one artist and you come inside and it's like it's completely somebody different. I don't know. There's a balance there, but I get that perspective as well. I do think that the cover should at least hint. Oh, somebody else just wrote that comment that they should hint that at what's going on inside, and it should be the case. But anyway, hey, here's a comment. Cliff asks, how does an indie creator market their comics for a younger demo? Example, like The Amulet or like a Battling Boy. there's a market for it. What's interesting is that there's a lot of publishers out there, and in fact, more than ever. And I predict as the schools struggle to open, you're going to see more and more avenues where publishers are going to want content for a younger demographic, under 16, let's say. And with the success of Dogman and Raina Telgemeier and some of these others, there is far more demand for these books than there's product. With one exception, a lot of the product that's going for a younger audience is not really for a younger audience. In many cases, it's people are writing for an older audience. It does not connect with kids, and you can tell just in the work that it's not appropriate for that market. When I say appropriate, I don't mean like no nudity or cursing or anything. I mean that it doesn't resonate with kids. And Dogman works really well because an 8-year-old can pick it up and it works for them. It fits them. The humor style and all the rest fits. And so there is an avenue. So how do you market? There are some publishers. I've got some on my desk. There's avenues to do it. You can, right now, if you're just trying to do something yourself, there's a lot of local bookstores. If you're any kind of bigger city, a lot of independent bookstores that are just desperate for any kind of content, specifically aimed at a younger demographic. If you go in, I know in the Seattle area, there's a handful of books. There's a bookshop in Redmond, which is a suburb of Seattle, that has a sign up right now in their window, basically asking for product. If you are, do you have a book aimed at 16 or younger? Bring it in. They'll pay markup rates for it. They're just desperate to get that kind of content in. So it's actually not that hard if you have it. But the trick is to have a story that's going to land.
I agree. I mean, that's one thing. Like I gravitate towards as a kid. Your X-Men Adventures, Batman stuff at the time. Like we're talking pre-Nightfall and everything like that. A lot of the stuff I was getting, a lot of the comics I was reading were at flea markets, and we're talking the Roger Stern era of Avengers. I got a majority of mine. Like I'm pretty much got a complete Roger Stern era run, and I read them until the pages are falling out. A lot of them didn't have the covers to begin with, so I don't even know what the covers look like. Mm-hmm. So I mean, they're probably like from a newsstand and like rip the cover off, and hey, it's taken to a flea market, get a stack of whatever 100, sell it for $5 to a guy at a flea market stand. And they resell it for quarter a piece. They make whatever, and a lot of those comics pretty straightforward character dilemmas and everything, but nothing too heavy. We're not dealing with, I don't know, like well, except for like you're raising, you're getting impregnated, and then you raise your baby grows up, and then you marry your baby, and your teammates are happy for you. As basically, the Avengers 200. Hey, Joe Shooter could do no wrong.
Well, yeah.
But
you stay in this industry long. I mean, everybody's done some wrong. I mean,
yeah. Though there's Dazzler, the movie. Oh
well, yeah. It was a success of the decade. What can I say? There you go. Hey, Sean Gordon Murphy. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Always, and I got to thank you again. I do it publicly for doing that amazing interview. You were awesome, and one of the easiest conversations I've had with people, just right off the bat. And you were great. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yeah, good luck on the campaign, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, another example of an amazing value for a book. That book, you could step in at a digital only, like super cheap for like 160 pages. It's a ridiculous amount of content from a top tier artist, writer that is right there for you. And I mean it when I say it. The hook is so unique. I love the hook for your book. So I'm looking forward to this. And there's God, you got to get in on that if you haven't. It's incredible. Oh no, I'm now losing questions because I haven't been answering them fast enough. That's not good. Somebody asked something about has Bendis given up on comics. I don't know. I don't think he's given up, but I do think that it's a common problem for quite a few writers that if they don't have a passion. I'm not saying this is Bendis. It's your opinion whether you like Bendis or not like Bendis and what he's doing. But I know that it's been common in comics that a decade goes by and you could tell at what point the creators involved just are collecting the check and keeping going. And it's actually less common than it used to be. But man, in the 80s, there were a couple instances of just clearly the creator was done at that point, but they're just kind of continuing to go through the motions. And you see even the characters are like fighting bigger than life supervillains and just seem bored out of their mind. It's funny.
Well, I honestly think Bendis' biggest issue is he overstretches himself. Like when people enjoy, like, think back when you actually enjoyed his work 20 years ago. He's like maybe writing 3 books. You know, you got Alias, Powers. Powers is sporadic at best. And you had like what, Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yep.
And then he started taking on more books and then more books and more. And then the quality started just going downhill. And like, hey, I could just have these people talk. You know, it's the Tarantino, Kevin Smith. Let's just talk. And I don't like it. It's like the Seinfeldification of comics almost. It's a comic book about nothing. It's like where like you can read any like random, like I said, Roger Stern era Avengers. You got Black Knight pining over, you know, like, oh man, I need my better place on the team. You got Dr. Druid, like, what are you doing here? It's like, hey, somebody invited the Brooklyn Brawler.
It's totally that. Yeah, it's like if there's a wrestling analogy where they're like, let's well, it's kind of like when the NWO got to Red and Black and some of those other versions. You're like, okay,
NWO 2000, Wolfpack, the Latino World Order. You know, it's like most of those are Blue World Order. They're Stevie Richards, Blue
at that point we're just handing out shirts at this point. Like we got some extra boxes in the back. I'm picturing like Eric Bischoff in the back. Like, what are we going to do with all these extra shirts? And then up walks Conan and like, hey, you over here. And that's what it feels like. But I don't know. Hey, Joseph. Joseph asks, who are some creators you feel get too much credit for one title, but you know in your heart they've done better work that never got the praise it truly deserved? This is an awesome question and a hard one. This is a hard, because I know I'm going to answer, and then like an hour from now, a way better answer will come into my mind. But you know what's interesting is I think almost every creator, like big name creator, that what they're most famous for is not, in my mind, usually their best work. I think that's true of John Byrne. I think it's true of the exception that might be, I think Chris Claremont is probably best known for Uncanny X-Men. He did nail Uncanny X-Men. I mean, he's got some other great work, but that is, man, what about you, Larry? I'm going to stall now. What do you think?
Wow, it's like one of those. It's like one of those. You really had to think about these things. It's like where you have someone like Alan Moore. A lot of people say Watchmen, but honestly, the way Watchmen's been handled, where it's like we can't just leave the grave alone. They got to keep digging up that corpse.
Yeah, that's true.
They got to keep digging it up. Miracle Man's that for me. He took this character, blatant. It was Captain Marvel was being published in the UK. DC finally wins. Fawcett goes under. Well, we can't have Captain Marvel anymore, so now we call him Marvel Man. Marvel Man kind of fades away. He gets brought back, so they say, well, just in case we can't, keep the rights, we'll call it Miracle Man. Warrior goes under. Warrior, the issues start getting published by Eclipse. Mm-hmm. That goes on, like that whole saga in and out of the comics, surrounding it. This idea of this, like dealing with, wow, I'm. It's me inside this superhuman body, but I don't feel pain. I'm a Ubermensch. I'm the Superman. Oh yeah, your wife who you've been trying to get pregnant for a while. Oh, I knocked her up. I'm not really the same me anymore. He loses his powers, and the miracle dog bites off his fingers and claws up his guts, almost like disemboweling him. And he's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to die!" And like he's been depowered, like this true fear. And then when he finally gets his powers back, and he's slowly walking through a compound, soldiers shooting at him, and he's just chopping them in half with his hand. One guy just stands there. He pokes a hole right through his chest. Basically, this hero would do like anybody else. You tried to kill me. I'm going to take it out of you. It's a hero in a. It's really, at the end of the day, Zack Snyder should have done a Miracle Man movie.
By the way, there's a bunch of people, I think, well, maybe not. Who have never read Miracle Man, who are super confused at this point. So.
Okay. Oh, Miracle Man.
No, it's a great comic.
It's a great comic. It has actually, to me, issue 16, it ends. Yeah. I mean, Neil Gaiman continues, but he never got to finish. And Marvel bought all this stuff, and the whole Todd McFarlane and Neil Gaiman suits, and then Marvel, they've released in the hardcovers. It costs you $130 to read, but because Marvel, I guess Quesada wanted it so bad, but it's out there, so you can read it digitally or traditionally.
I think you hit on a good one. I think Alan Moore is a great one, because he has Watchmen. I think V for Vendetta are probably the ones that people always go for, and I would say the Miracle Man work. I would say the League of
Oh God, Leo Extraordinary Gentleman. Top 10.
Yeah.
Top 10's so good.
Oh, Top 10's a great one. Very few people have heard of Top 10 at this point, and that's a great comic.
It's so good. Well, first off, Alan Moore ripped off episode of Homicide: Life on the Street. That there's an episode with Vincent D'Onofrio in an episode where I guess there's a light rail or a subway in Baltimore. He gets trapped in between the tracks, and it's like he's basically going to die no matter what. They move the train, he's dead. They stay there, he's dead, and they're trying to get in touch with his wife, and it's like really tragic. And there's like the issue of Top 10 that's Alan Moore basically said, "Oh yeah, I love Homicide: Life on the Street," and he basically just copied that episode. And then later down the line, there's bits of that that get there's a story where it's something similar he does in Top 10 with this like horse alien, kind of like a Better Ray Bill type, and the dialogue and the way the scenes illustrated and everything by Gene Ha and Xander Cannon, because I think Xander Cannon did the layouts and Gene Ha did the finishes. Yeah. And it was actually replicated in the first season of True Detective. So it's like everything kind of feeds back into each other. But I mean, Supreme is, what if Alan Moore did Superman? Had unrestricted access to Superman, and it's got some amazing stories in it. It's like, oh my God, this is great. Too bad the collections is.
No, you're absolutely right. It's funny because Alan Moore is people always go to Watchmen and then they go to the crazy bearded snake god guy, and there's just so much to Alan Moore that people leave behind. I mean, just
from hell.
Just so many stories. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and his Swamp Thing work was really good. He did a lot, and I think it's worth catching up. One name I'll throw out there, because I'll throw out one that so Stephen Grant did this little comic that you may or may not remember with Mike Zeck for Punisher: Return to Big Nothing. And this is one of those ones that I think a lot of people have forgotten. Garth Ennis has certainly put his mark on Punisher, but if you haven't picked that up as well, it's cheaper now. You can find it at a lot of half-price bookstores. This is, I believe, was in the 80s, and it's I'm actually holding this hardcover right at the moment. This was a great Punisher story that just there's a lot of things out there, certainly in the late 80s or mid to late 80s, of a lot of great comics that are being rapidly forgotten that you've got to go pick up. Anyway,
that's one of those stories I actually have not read. I like Punisher, but I haven't done. I'm more of like Ennis. I'm more of an Ennis Punisher guy. Punisher Max. I didn't really even care for his Marvel Knights stuff that much. I mean, I was more like I want unrestricted Punisher. I want no holds barred Punisher.
You got this. It's a good. Again, this is in the 80s. It was when Marvel was doing Epic, and it is. I'm curious if anybody in the chat has even heard of this. Yeah, I don't have the video on, so nobody can see what I'm holding up, but trust me, you can hear it in my hand. There's a hardcover right there, but this is Punisher, kind of unrestricted. There's blood. There's people getting shot up. It's Punisher being Punisher on a mission, doing all kinds of things. It's just, these are comics where, I mean, I'm trying to, there's no page count on this, but a lot happens in what's got to be about 40, 50 pages or so of flashbacks, and he's in a prison dressed up like a guard. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff. It's a great book. But anyway, definitely you want that one. So, yeah, there we go. Again, this is just a fun conversation. There are some really good questions here. Sketchosaurus Rex makes a comment that some of these are full video topics. So I'll come back and look at this later and make some, because there's some good stuff. And I like talking about this stuff way better than
Hidden Alan Moore gems. Hidden Alan Moore gems. That's definitely a topic, because I'm seeing I've never heard of Top 10 and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like Promethea. Good God, Promethea.
No, that's a good one. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like, at that point, it's one of those comics, you read it and it's like, who needs Wonder Woman anymore? It's kind of one of those, it ties into that, but it goes even further back to the pulps and mythology. Oh God. Beautiful. J.H. Williams III. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, and DC had to run him out with the whole, we can't do marriages. No.
Well, yeah, so many dumb decisions. I mean, short-sighted decisions in a lot of cases, and it's true with comics. I think that people make decisions in comics in the industry without kind of thinking about the long-term consequences. It has become such a short-term thinking industry, and you see it in some of the scandals and things going on now that you look back at some of the damage that's been done with just not thinking things through all the way over the years of people who've been run out, or characters have been damaged, or short-term sales bumps they wanted to do for a book that then wrecked the whole run. I mean, just so much. But anyway. Robert, hey, Robert has another question. Somebody asked why, you could, by the way, first of all, good for you for being in the gym and working out. That's awesome. I when the gyms were open, I used to go to the gym and listen to videos. I listened to all kinds of videos from different people. It's great. I don't know why I should listen to like aggressive music. That's what you're supposed to do. If we don't give you money, how can we call you a grifter? You can always call me a grifter. Feel free. It's all good. I don't mind. But here, for actual question, I have been building a whole fictional universe with multiple titles and characters. Do you think I should put them in an anthology book or introduce them slowly? My personal opinion, I'd do anthology if I were you. I think it's a better chance that you'll actually get to all of those things. If you introduce them slowly, the odds that life's going to get in the way and you'll never get to introducing them is a problem. Larry has seen I've got this big script for a big world, and the daunting part to it is if I get to it, if I actually finish it, it'll be a miracle. And so you just hate to see those ideas left on the table.
Yeah, that's one of those issues when you're building a whole universe. I've found this out when I realized long ago that I could not necessarily focus on the anthology thing. But if I was going to go that route, I would go that route. If I wanted to be built, except here's the universe, here's this character story, here's a character story here, here's a character story here. It could be 16 pages each character. And if you think 16 pages, that ain't much, but then you realize you look at comics like Matt Fraction's the Casanova, or Warren Ellis and Ben Temple-Smith's Fell comic, 16 pages. And if you depend on how you lay your pages out, you can do a Watchmen style compression. I mean, we're talking compressed comics. Look at what 2000 AD has done. They tell most of the time, they're serialized, but there's a lot of one-shot stories in there as well, especially with the Rogue Trooper, some of the Dread stuff, but they're full stories in 6 pages, but it doesn't feel like 6 pages. It feels more like 10 or 12, but it's the way they tell them. That right there can be done in American comics, but a lot of it's, too much, honestly, too much, cinematic manga, anime influence, where it's a little too decompressed. I'm guilty of this myself. Call it hypocrisy if you wish, but it depends on, I go where the comic takes me. Decompressed here, very compressed there, wherever. But you can compress these stories and to be able to get this. It doesn't have to be, I have to stretch the story out to 10 pages or 12 pages. If the story takes 5 pages, you can do you have this vampire character, do 5 pages here, dealing with this past love. I shouldn't love because I'm a vampire, and then do a story down the line where somebody's trying to kill him and he's got to fight that person off, or whatever. Yeah, you got options. I mean, there is no right way or wrong way with comics. I mean, people say, well, that anatomy is bad. I'm like, that's cartooning. Like, Dan DeCarlo, or, oh my goodness, her head's too big. A woman's legs would never move like that. Archie, what's them things in his hair? It looks like he's got slash marks, like somebody cut him up with a knife. Like he's like what do you call him? The thing with the old, what do you call them? Barber shops that have the big old leather strap, sharpen up the straight razor. It looks like that's on his head. It's called cartooning. Like if you're Brian Hitch or John Cassidy, fine. You have a wonky leg, then that's going to stand out really bad. But most comic art is cartooning.
Well, yeah, when you're getting started, I think just get started. So many people psych themselves out for sure. It's a common problem. It's best to get started. You'll hone your craft. You'll get better and better as you go. Hey, this is a complete change of gears. Have a majority of your customers returned since lockdown? Well, I haven't returned, so no. I guess is the answer. I'm still waiting to return and really questioning some of my decisions. So I'm still trying to return to market. I did give a loan to a friend of mine who's got a shop that just reopened, and the comment that I'm hearing anecdotally in Facebook groups and other places around here is about 15-20% of customers are just not showing back up, and they don't know if they're going to. They don't know if people are scared to go out and do the pickup. But pretty consistently now I'm hearing somewhere between 15-20% are gone. I think some of those will come back, But where it's really going to hurt is from the people who buy new comics, who are, the kind of shelf buyers, not necessarily pull box customers. I think that audience is gone and not coming back. So there's got to be a real big push from the publishers to get people back into shops and give people. I mean, now's the time to really make a hard argument of hey, there's some compelling entertainment here in your comic shop. Hey, there's stuff that's new, there's stuff that's old. If I'm Marvel or DC, I'm starting to publish like on the cheapest possible paper, giant phone book, giant collections for $10 and trying to put out hey, just get tons of our old content out in your hands. Something to do, something to read. Parents, bring your kids in here. Here's Superman from the 90s. Just whatever it happens to be, I think you got to create some more easy entryways because in general, I think customers are not coming back, or some are, and we need them back. So we got to give them a reason to come back. There's not a big. I mean, DC's going now, and they're putting comics out, and they're in a better shape, at least in getting things going in. Marvel's still doing that every other week thing, and it feels there's some title. I mean, Thor sold really, really well, but it's sluggish, and we're not seeing the kind of build up back to capacity yet. It still feels very, very fragile. It's tough.
Yeah, I think honestly, one thing that came to mind when Hush came out in the first 608, Batman 608. That right there, I think I was outside putting up some tools. I think it was like power saw or whatever, and I had the radio on, and it was dusk, and there's a local radio station, Rock 103.5, place called Fayetteville, and they actually had they had an ad. This is back, 20 years ago now. They had a ad on the radio for Batman 608. The first Hush, Jim Lee, Batman. It was on the radio. And I know probably the local comic store did it. Maybe it was some kind of thing with DC reimbursed. Maybe even back then. I don't know. But they made a big deal of it. There's not that many big deal comics. They try to make them, but they really need a big deal comic. And it's like, okay, we're going to get J. Scott Campbell to do 4 issues. Full covers and interiors. We're going to pony up the money. We're going to make this matter. We're going to make it an event, not just say, and this character who appeared in Young Avengers is going to be the secret ruler of the Skrull and Kree. Who cares? Arno Stark, snooze fest, that kind of thing. You need a badass comics that anybody could pick up. You could give that without having to worry about Black Adam ripping someone in half. Bye bye, Terra Man in half.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's tough. Now's the time to go for some classics for sure. I think anyway. It's tricky. Hey, more question. Is there any chance that Marvel will ever let an artist stay on a title for an entire run instead of 4 to 5 issues? Or always be afraid of the artist becoming too big? I think it's. I suspect if you talk to people at Marvel, nobody would say we don't want an artist on for a full run. I think nobody sets out to not have an artist complete a run, but I think they do set out with a limited budget. And I think very quickly, they've just discovered, I use the phrase Moneyball, which may not be the best way to describe it, but just this idea that, an editor is given a certain budget or a line is given a certain budget. And what they've seen some sales success with is that they put a maybe more expensive artist than they can afford on the book for 2 to 3 issues. And with the idea that it's going to kind of juice the title, it'll get a bunch of people into it. They'll get into the store, they'll put it in their pull boxes. And then that kind of initial push will last 12 more issues of a much cheaper artist. And so that's why you see these books go that direction. It's about economics. It's about kind of how they've structured their business. I think that it's a bad strategy long-term. This again goes back to that short-term thinking. I think that it makes sense in terms of managing a portfolio, and Marvel's clearly on top. So they're doing something right from a finance perspective for themselves. But the challenge is they're not building up kind of longevity. So I feel like it's this game that constantly eats itself where, increasingly they have to relaunch titles, get a new expensive artist on again to kind of go through the same motions. And they just have to keep kind of doing this. And it's driving down the overall value of titles that they could count on. So what you'll see is this very slow erosion. And in many cases, let's see if I describe this well. It's like a cliff where it's eroding out from under you, but you don't see it. You're still on stable ground, but the ground is underneath is getting flimsier and flimsier, and eventually it kind of topples, and then they'll discover some of their top books just, they'll do a relaunch and just people won't show up for the relaunch. And that's, I think, the danger of what they're doing. I think the smartest thing Marvel can do, or DC or anybody, is predictability. Send a message to the market of saying, hey, we're making a commitment to you, 18 issues. It's going to be this writer. It's going to be this artist. They're on it for 18 issues. You can count on it, and just buy in, and just start. And you don't need to do all your comics that way. Just start with a few that way and see if it takes. I'm guessing that would be hugely successful if they would do something like that, because people want certainty. They want to know if they're investing into something that it's going to be the same creator. It's why I think, amongst other reasons, why White Knight worked as good as it is, why the Batman's Grave is working well. It's like, hey, it's a consistent team that like Sean Gordon Murphy isn't gonna disappear on issue number 4. So you feel more comfortable buying in. What do you think, Larry?
I honestly think that's a good idea, because you have a lot of these comics. You start on a book, like look at DC's the effort with the was it DCU, the one with the there's the ripoff of the Marvel Universe, not quite Spider-Man, not quite Hulk, not quite Fantastic Four, so on and so forth. It was DCU. What was it called? I can't remember now. I just remember Jim Lee didn't even do a full issue, and then you had a lot of these artists like, oh, John Romita Jr. for like 2 issues, and this artist for like 3 issues, and then you had like a lot of this stuff they couldn't even commit to 6 months. But by the time, like, the artists had changed by the time the first issue was out. Like it was already solicited. It's like, oh yeah, the issue 3 and 4 are different artists and this and that. And like, I just couldn't care. But a lot of these comics, the consistency, you need artists. Like, if you have a hot artist, that's great. But if they can't do monthly work, if they can't if you have to give them extra lead-in time, get about 4 or 5 issues in the can before you even solicit. At the very least, you got like 5 issues, miniseries. You don't get that. The sales ain't great. Oh, well, like 6 issues in the can. Boom, there you go. Yes, you're paying people to not, like you're paying ahead of time anyway. You're paying the artists. The artists ain't getting paid from the retailers. That the retailers pay, the distributors, so on and so forth. They are not getting that money. They're company. Like make an effort for consistency as well. It's like, and like you said, Sean Gordon Murphy is like, it isn't like that scene in Wayne's World 2, where it's like, can we get a better actor? And like, here they swap it out for, the Charlton Heston. It's like exact opposite. You have Charlton Heston, you swap him out for some rando, some local stage, he's some amateur actor, local actor. This is what happens. Like, I'm not replacing the role of Sean Gordon Murphy on White Knight. We have, insert Rob Liefeld clone from the 90s here. It's like, what are you doing? No, don't do this. we have Chap Yep, and replacing the role of Sean Gordon Murphy is Chap Yep. And maybe Chap Yep's a nice guy.
No, sure,
but it's not that. Don't do that though. That's not cool, guys. Dan Panosian though, he has really changed since the 90s.
Oh, for sure.
I would love to see a Sean Gordon Murphy written book with Dan Panosian doing the interior art. Like that would, and the covers. Yeah. Slots, great. The comic slots, not Dan. The comic, the crime.
Not Dan.
Vegas.
So, by the way, for everybody, I'm using StreamYard to do this, which I guess is the tool you're supposed to use. But they chop off the chat. So, like, I have to answer the questions faster because they're disappearing.
Okay, well, here's one I saw posted multiple times. Matthew Reeks.
I've got one up on the screen real quick. It's about to go off. So this is like the stupidest problem. Okay. Different question. Why do you think some of the crowdfunding campaigns have not adjusted their price points to match the page count? Because some charge 45 for 60 pages. I mean, they should. It's what the market will bear is a short answer. I do think crowdfunding campaigns ultimately will need to lower their prices to some extent. They're too high right now to sustain long term. Now, that said, if people are willing to buy it and the market is there for this kind of stuff, great. But I'm looking like in the 5 to 10 year period, I think crowdfunded campaigns are going to have to find a better economics for what they're doing, because it's just, for new people breaking in, it's not sustainable. And I think it's been a case where some people are able to go on Ethan Van Sciver's stream or wherever, and they get some promotions for it. They get some, and it kind of boosts the cost up, and that's cool. I may be completely ignorant, by the way, about how this is happening, but I know that some people who are new to the market get some, what I would call, I don't want to say this because people get pissed off and say it the wrong way. It's like No. Just they get some artificial marketing. They get some marketing that is beyond kind of their exposure level, and it's cool for them. So I'm not saying it's bad, but what it does is it maybe artificially boosts the price up higher than what they could normally demand, if that makes any sense. And I think that warps things a little bit as other people come in and they kind of want to play in that same space, but they don't have the same marketing. So then they don't get the same attention, and people get angry. And it's we need a better system. Crowdfunding, as I've talked about, it's not it's the Wild West, and there's some people who are succeeding great from it, and there's some people who are kind of languishing in the heat with it. And there's a structure that still needs to exist if we want it to sustain 5-10 years and really be everything it can be. So there's some work to be done there. Anyway.
Yeah, I honestly think a lot of it boils down to equivalent. I'll keep on saying this: fish fry, like a Shriners. It's about money raising. It's not actually about the product itself. But that's just my opinion. Because a lot of the stuff, it's 40 pages, 25 cover price. Oh yeah, by the way, it's shipping and handling at $10, so $35 at least, sometimes more. That's if you get it, Bright Wipers, Red Rooster. But
there's a lot of comics out there that never, and every time they ship, and I have gotten some of the nastiest mail from people when I complain about folks that are late or don't ship. And life happens. I get it. I get when things don't.
Definitely.
But when you don't ship, you're really hurting kind of everybody who wants to make money this way. So it's like, as crappy as it is, suck it up and try to apologize or make good or whatever happens.
Transparency. That's to me the biggest thing. It's like you're transparent.
Be transparent. Yes.
Exactly. There's no excuse. I mean, this isn't like, oh wow, I send the email, it takes a week to get to everybody. No, it's instant. Every month you should be updating. If you don't have much to update, you update anyway. Transparency, it's one of those things. It's one of those issues. But hey, it's a simple thing. It's a lot of the stuff. It's like it's and also consistency. I mean, it's like
you got to do it. It's hard, and I totally get that. It sucks when you are you're late, and our internet culture dunks on people so fast, constantly. That if you admit any kind of weakness, that you're going to have legions of people coming at you, no matter where you sit, whichever side of the political ideology nonsense you sit on, people are going to come after you, and it's going to suck. But remember, for every one person coming at you, there's 100 people beneath that who will respect your transparency. It sounds naive. It sounds too optimistic, but it's true. They will respect the fact that you're at least letting them in, and they'll buy you all kinds of credibility. Those are your customers you want long term anyway. So
exactly, the silent "you'll get it when you get it" is not going to cut it. And also, you burn enough people, and there's only one person right now. It's Josh Howard, who's got his comic T-Bird and Throttle issue 4, which is really 60 pages. It's more than most of these crowdfunded books, and also as well as the trade paperback, collecting all of it plus bonus material. And its campaign's still going on. Things like last week that it's up. And that right there, he's the only person. The book isn't finished, but because of transparency as well as consistency, delivering a quality product, I'll back his book. Everybody else, your book ain't finished, you're not getting no money. Granted, okay, Larry, that's your choice. Yes, of course.
It's everybody's choice.
That's why I finish my comics and I sell them when they're done. Because it's like doing to others. It's like a lot of these people, well, you'll get it, and estimated delivery is 18 months from now. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
come on. 40 pages, 18 months. Come on.
It's the same. I'm like I said, I'm making a comic. It won't, you won't see any promotion for it in terms of buying it or any of that stuff until it's done. But it's a personal choice. I'm not knocking anybody who does it otherwise. It's your choice, both as a creator, it's your choice as a consumer to what you want. I'm just giving some advice here. If you're a creator and you run into problems, and everybody, big and small, has run into problems. And when you do, be transparent about it. Your customers will thank you, and the other creators who are trying to make books will also thank you, because you're not going to leave a bad taste in someone's mouth where they start to not want to, go in for another book. It's just common customer service, I think. Really.
Common decency too. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But that question, Matthew Reese, what is the number one marketing error comics make?
Oh, thank you. I saw that one go by. I don't have it up on the screen, but yes, what is the number one comic market? I think it's actually related to what we were just talking about. It's promising too much too soon and feeling like there's some insecurity in what it is that you're producing. And you see this, you read it in everybody, small people, crowdfunded, Marvel, DC, everybody. There's this insecurity at times that reads through the solicitation where people feel like they have to promise kind of either earth-shaking events or the greatest comic you will ever read in the world. It's not cute anymore. It just comes off obnoxious. Just market what you've got. Don't try and hide. Like I've seen some people do crowdfunding campaigns where they'll post like 4 or 5 pictures of the comic pages, and they post the ones that are like they spent all the time on, and then the rest of the comic is just garbage. They spend no time on those. So it's very misleading. That's the stuff that you may get your money once, you'll never get it a second time. And there's no reason to do it. A lot of readers are just looking for a good story, something to entertain themselves. They're not looking for a masterpiece on every page. They just want something solid. And people kind of outthink themselves, and they try and fictionally create some unicorn product that they don't have, and they wind up burning. That's why a lot of people who've done some crowdfunded comics have never done a second one, because they burn their audience with the first.
Yeah, that's one of those problems. Like, you see a lot of these comics, like you said, they promise the world, give you everything. They don't. Hush did. I'll admit, Hush, they kind of almost undersold that. That thing was flying. I remember, here's a limited edition. Here's a cover, one of the few variants. I'm like, whatever, that's fine. Like, and then things like $30-$40 the next week. It's like flying off the shelves. Everybody wanted that back in the day. But a lot of these things, like, they don't live up to that hype. And also, like, the greatest comic you ever read. Can you show me some interior pages? They can't. If you can't show me at least 4 pages, especially if your comic's only like 12 pages long, that's a problem. But usually 16, 20, 24, 60. If your comic's 100, you're saying, it's a 100-page graphic novel, this, that, whatever. You don't have a single page drawn. You didn't have the wherewithal to hire someone out of your own pocket, say, I need to see if you can actually do this comic. But you're willing to take other people's money, but kind of going back. But you said, that's what I'm saying, that you got to, whether it's big too or whatnot, it's like the TBD and the previews.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's like, you hate that. I'm pretty sure anybody else, you have a cover mock-up or not final cover, and TBD artist, you have a writer maybe, but everything else is to be determined. And like, we got to move past that. You got to have all your ducks in a row. Like, if you don't have that, don't solicit it. If you don't have it, don't have nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah. With marketing, you're not trying to build a Swiss Army knife. Just go with something basic. Go with something that's going to immediately connect with your readers. Try it out with some other people. I've given this advice to other people who are about to do comics, of like, go find some people who are maybe not comic readers. Show them the 1-paragraph pitch for your comic, and if they can understand it, you're in good shape. And if you just have confused the living hell out of them, then you're doing too much. And that's a temptation in comics in general, is always people they get insecure about their product and they just do way too much, and it's you fall apart very quickly. But Caleb asks a quick question: do you think Blue Marvel should have another mini series, or have him finally join the Avengers? I think Blue Marvel is one of those characters at Marvel that actually they could do a lot more with. It always feels like Marvel's unsure of that character. Like they'll bring him into a comic for a little while, and it's like, whoa, we don't know what to do with him. Or I don't know what's wrong there, but he's a actually compelling character they built up that they can do some stuff with, but they don't. It's weird to me. I don't know.
My issue with Blue Marvel is that he feels very like, the power fantasy. Like, he's like, it's too power fantasy like. It's like, I understand, like, they, it's okay, it feels like a character created by a kid, and I think that's almost like what the origin was. Like the what was it? Not John Ridgely. The guy who created it was like, this character want to create his kid. That's what it feels like. It feels like the way too perfect of a character. And it feels like a DC character within Marvel. It's like Captain America. They put flaws on him, but really he feels like a DC character at Marvel. Batman's more of like a Marvel character at DC, with all the mental troubles and all this and that. That's how I view it. But
he's way overpowered. But I mean, this is a case where if Marvel's saying they want to go out and they want to do cosmic and they want to do some of these bigger stories, then give him a challenge. Yeah, put him. Yeah, him and wow. I mean, him and a couple other like cosmic, Beta Ray Bill and a couple other characters. Lady Sif. There you go. Put Lady Sif and Beta Ray Bill as a couple. Get them, have them be happy out there in space.
Maybe even have little horse babies. Who knows? Like little seahorses, cosmic seahorses.
Don't bring Blue Marvel into the Avengers and then like have him fighting the Hand in Tokyo. That would be stupid. You know, Blue Marvel could just pick up the ninjas, throw them into the sun, and then problem solved. And
that's the problem. That's one of my issues with the shared universe. Like DC, Marvel, all that stuff. It's like this, especially Marvel, the shared universe. You're telling me that all this horrible stuff. Well, they were busy this week. You know, they joke about it, but at the end of the day, it's like,
yeah,
wow, you guys like. It's like, wow, I was shot in the waist, paralyzed by the Joker. Well, we got a Lazarus pit over here. Let's go over. No, that would bring me back evil. Well, not necessarily. We got Zatanna here. We got John Constantine. Hey, Swamp Thing can give you a special apple that will keep the craziness at bay or something. Like, you could write yourself out of these corners, but it's like come on.
Well, it's one of the problems. I think you see it in both companies, but especially, well, not as much DC now. They've put some emphasis to it, but Marvel has depowered and deprioritized so many of their villains that it is a problem. Like Blue Marvel, if you think about that character in the 80s, fighting some of the stuff. I mean, the Fantastic Four is going up against huge, massive cosmic threats. I mean, they even had the Psycho Man as a cosmic, massive threat at one point. Well, not cosmic, but big threat. You could do that. But today, if you think about Blue Marvel, I'm just thinking like, who are the villains that you team up to? I mean, they made them all stupid. And so it's like you could picture Blue Marvel kind of cleaning up the whole Marvel universe in like 3 issues. You could just kind of wipe the floor with them and it's over. And that's the problem. That's why you don't blow up your villains. But anyway.
The defanging of villains is the biggest thing. I will say this. DC still, like, they focus on their villains sometimes a little too much, make them a little too evil. Like to the point of like, oh, he's going to do this horrible thing. And it's like, no one's like, you're telling me in a city like Gotham, somebody didn't just like, go around and just kill the Joker. Like some crooked cops, like a cabal of cops got together, said, let's just take the Joker out. And they walk away as heroes. Like, I mean, if Batman's horrified, like, you can't do this. It's like, you're just going to make him a martyr, whatever. And then like the cops are like, and then maybe the cops and cops' families get targeted, but, they can only work as a, Elseworld story. But then you have like, the Marvel stuff. It's like Taskmaster could kick the Avengers' ass. Used to. You had the Masters of Evil go in. They long gained Hercules. They got him away from the team, pissed him off, jackknifed the truck. Hey, let's go get you drunk. Poisoned him slowly. Got him aggro. He goes in and he gets curb stomped into oblivion. He basically dies, and he's been like mentally broken for like 15 years until like Thunderbolts. He shows up when the Thunderbolts is like, you people, you curb stomp me, and I'm going to take my revenge. And that's actually great storytelling. And that's great villain work. It's like, man, we did some horrible stuff. And you have
the villain should be the villains in my mind should always be more powerful than the heroes in a lot of cases.
Exactly. A hero is only as good as their villain. And you look at these Marvel. Look, it's like every Marvel. Oh wow, Kingpin becomes mayor. J. Jonah Jameson's mayor. This character's this. They defang everyone. It's like, see, he's got power, and they take. How many times have they face turn Scorpion or Venom and this and that? Like, these characters are no threat. It's like Norman Osborn. Is he alive? Is he dead? It's like, No,
it was a real mess. I think the problem with Dark Reign is Marvel wanted the villains taking over, but then wrote the villains to be kind of bumbling Seinfeld characters, and it was just they're cracking jokes with each other, and they're timid, and they're stupid, and it just. You need to. Villains are supposed to be. I mean, part of the reason why you make them terrible, they have no moral compass. The heroes have to find a way to beat maybe somebody who's more powerful to them, who also has no limits, who doesn't mind blowing up a city and civilians and everything else. The hero has to figure out how to work within, preventing casualties while fighting this villain. It's the dynamic, and it is broken. It is, and Marvel in particular has gone way too much to the well of like, hey, here come the Asgardian hordes, and it's like a bunch of trolls, and they're just stomping on crap and everything else. And it's like, what are you supposed to do with 500 kind of blue giants? That's just that. There's nothing compelling about that. You just have She-Hulk kind of mow through them. It's like it doesn't sell comics. And one of the best ways that comics were sold in the past was that you'd see this super threatening villain. You and I have talked about this, I think, in the past, where you had Daredevil take on Ultron, and Ultron's going to annihilate Daredevil. There's just no way. So that the compelling part as a reader, you pick that up. This is during Acts of Vengeance, I think. Mm-hmm. And you're like, how in the hell is Daredevil going to survive? Not just win, just how in the world? And they have to really come up with a compelling story for how Daredevil can just kind of eke out of that one without getting fried. That was threatening. It was cool. But today, when you pick up a comic, and this is, by the way, I think the core problem with Captain Marvel in particular as a character, Marvel really wants that to go over. They need it to. They need this franchise character, but you never feel like she's in any kind of threatening situation. It's just she's going to show up and maybe she's going to get punched around a bit. You're reading the comic going, well, at some point we're going to hit the page where she gets tired of screwing around and just, curb stops the villain. And it's like you gotta give her something threatening. I think if Marvel spent 12 to 18 issues giving Captain Marvel a super threat that just really just drug her all the way down, she had to struggle to fight back up and defeat the villain and overcome it. Like that would the title would come up. You'd see people stop complaining about the book. It's not that hard. But.
It isn't. I mean, we look at these characters. I mean, you can build villains. You can take old villains if you want, build new ones. You have to build them. You have to make them a threat. And a lot of the cheap heat, put wrestling terms, and like Eric Bischoff for Marvel editor-in-chief, like, no, because hey, let's bring in Russo. Like, no. We already had.
Exactly.
No, I do find it funny that Marvel introduces a character named Kane, who's a clone with scarred face and long hair, and then a couple years later, WWF introduces the Undertaker's brother Kane with a supposedly scarred face, long hair. But with your villains, you actually have to come in, and a lot of the cheap heat is the villain to kill a character. Your Alex, Kyle Rayner's girlfriend, stuff her in the fridge, or let's go and kill. The whole cry for justice, the whole killing Leanne Harper, and then the mutilation of Roy and everything like that. It's like, see, Prometheus is such a bad guy. I'm like, that just took me out. I was like, you know what? James Robinson, I like you for what you've done in the past. I don't really like you so much for now because you took this job. You took. Whoever said, let's do this, or you said it, either way, it's not a good look. And I'm okay with Sandman and Golden Age just being pretty much it for now. But a lot of this stuff, it's like, I'd love to see someone like, She-Hulk, or you need a villain for She-Hulk or Captain Marvel. A villain just grab her arm and then break it. No, I'm not kill, but wound, hurt.
No, the problem is
something,
I think she needs a big threat, and then we've got to get to other questions. I'd love, by the way, hopefully people are enjoying themselves in the chat. It's great. This is just a friendly chat. We'll do this more often. And thank you again, Larry, for coming on and chatting with me.
Great. Hopefully
yeah, I've got a bunch of people here. I appreciate it. I'm losing questions like crazy, but that's we'll get to them at some point. Hey, if I don't get to them, I'll go through and I'll read the chat after the fact. I'll do a video where I answer this stuff. I apologize if it soared up the screen. This is one reason why I never do super chats. The stress of just bringing up those chats. I'd never do it. But anyway, crap, where is it going? Oh, Captain Marvel. The challenge is that when you say, because there's such an adverse reaction to the character, that every time people bring up the idea of, hey, we need to actually break her arm, or we need to have a villain like capture her or do something really villainous, there's this knee-jerk reaction of oh, you just don't like the character. You just want to see her humiliated or
exactly. You can't hurt the hero. You can't challenge her. It's like, you're just bullying this character because you don't like her. I'm like, no. How do you think Superman felt? How do you think Spider-Man felt? Spider-Man being tormented. I mean, it's great. You need that torment. You need. Kraven the Hunter is the biggest bully Spider-Man ever had.
What you need, and this is the short-term thinking. I'm sorry for repeating it, but the short-term thinking versus the long-term thinking. If you want Captain Marvel to be a huge character for your company, then you need to give her a huge overcome moment where she, overcomes the odds and actually gets to the top of the mountain and life is great for her. That she needs that moment, but the only way you're going to get there is if she has a mountain to climb. If you don't give her any kind of challenge, if you don't give her any big threat, she's not going to be able to overcome and have that bigger moment. But if you're only looking in terms of like 3 to 4 months out total, then of course you never want to give her a big threat because you only have 3 months. Her challenge has to be like 4 pages in a comic book before she overcomes. But you don't earn that struggle. That's the challenge. But But anyway,
it's simple. It's honestly simple storytelling. A lot of these people write these comics like they're sitcoms. Like they want to be part of some writer's room. Like they want to, yeah. I know you like it, and a lot of people do. Like Rick and Morty, they want to work. Oh, I want to work with Rick and Morty. If I write this comic, I might be able to parlay that into this, and work for Rick and Morty or whatever shows going on, or be a part of the writers' room or some Netflix show or what have you. It's a lot of these people are just there as a stepping stone to someplace else. And a lot of these people are the Sables of comics, where she wasn't there because she loved it. It's like we're dealing with a person who just was there as a stepping stone to someplace else. Yeah, her movie career really took off. Yeah, sure. Stepping stone to Brock Lesnar's. Brock Lesnar, that's about it. But a lot of these people, they're not here for a passion, a love, and it's not like, well, you're purity testing them. How dare you gatekeep? Yeah. It's clearly in their work. Their work says it. It's like that comic that you horribly subjected your daughters to with the cats, the Captain Marvel. That right there.
I hated that comic. And this comic is made for kids. It's the funniest thing. Again, these are two daughters, 6 and 9, about to be 7 and 10, and they are, they love One Piece. They love My Hero Academia. They're now getting into more U.S. comics. They really, my older daughter is loving the original Secret Wars. Just loves that comic, and these kinds of things. And it's like, this is the audience you want to grab. So Captain Marvel against Enemy Cats, it's just you're missing your target audience. So forget. I'm guessing most of us, myself, you, people in the chat, we may like or dislike some of these comics, but it really doesn't matter if your target audience is like 10 to 16, then our opinions we can make comment on, but it really doesn't matter. But that 10 to 16 audience hates it. Like you're not grabbing them. You're not achieving that goal. Forget what we're saying. Forget the YouTubers who come on and trash it or roast or whatever else. That's not your target market. But your target market, your actual target market hates this. So you can fight with the YouTubers about who's making mean comments or not. But meanwhile, the market you're going after is not buying your book. So, big waste. Anyway.
And a lot of these people, like I look at it, I'm like, hey, comics in other places other than comic shops, a lot of people feel threatened about that. I say it's a good thing. My first comic was not at a comic book store. But once I found, like, it's one of those things, like, you first taste is on the streets, then you go to the crack house. There you go. The comics crack house. There's some comic shops. They're in some bad neighborhoods. The one in particular, one of my favorite shops ever. It might be my number one shop, just because of the absurdity. Is the shop from God, never found whatever. Ontario Street Market is a comic shop from Unbreakable and the Unbreakable glass. It is in a war zone. You drive through, there's barbed wire, razor wire fences, burned out cars, vacant buildings, giant potholes, narrow streets with two-way traffic, corner stores, looks like probably like Italian neighborhood or something. And you go there, and the parking lot area for where you park for the comic book store has got razor wire everywhere, security cameras, the heavy metal gates. You go in there, it's comics upon comics upon comics. There's a guy in there. He's muttering to himself. I'm going through some comics looking for some GI combats and NAMs and everything like that. And some very lightning comics, cheap 90s garbage, trying to cash in on the image stuff. Oh, it's beautifully trash. I love it.
You like a good back alley long box, they say.
Oh God, I love it. The dollar quarter bins, like, going through it's like, oh my God, this comic is garbage. I gotta pick this up to take a look how bad it is. It's like the Red Letter Media best of the worst kind of deal. And terrible location, but it's beautifully just like there's no pretense. This isn't like the Funkos are over here, the manga, anime scrolls, the silk anime scrolls over here, the tabletop games. No, it's like 99% comics upon comics, and a lot of it in really good, different priced variants and everything like that. It's stuff like that. Comics should have that. We should have that everywhere. We should have like access to comics pretty much everywhere. But like you said, Dogman, the Randy Telgemeier stuff, all that stuff. Comics have been in other places before, Walmarts, Targets. Just because they haven't been like Spider-Man and Superman all the time doesn't mean they haven't been there. So it's one of those things. It's like they've been there and they've been selling really well. You just haven't heard of it. It's like, you're so niche, guys. You're so niche. You got to understand a bigger world of comics with the scholastic stuff. It's like so many kids. It's like if you can crack that,
the audience is there. The audience is ready for them. And that's the sad part, is you're just failing to connect. But anyway. Hey, so let me hit a couple questions quickly. What's a good way to break in on YouTube reviewing comics? Is Twitter or Facebook a must? No, I think the best way to go on YouTube, and I'm not the right person. I mean, I'm here, I don't know how many, I have way more subscribers than I expect. So first off, thank you to everyone I have no idea why you subscribe, but thank you. It's really appreciated. I really, and Larry knows this for a fact. When I started doing this, I was expecting 50 people tops subscribe. I mean,
you underestimated yourself. So I was like, you're going to do fine. Don't worry about it. Cause like you actually have,
I didn't care.
But that's the thing, you have something to say. And that's the thing. It's like, and I say fine. I'm like, cause you can divorce yourself from the, oh my God, oh no, I was demonetized. How? No. Whenever you do that, I'm going to like, oh, that Perch I knew is he's gone.
No. I mean, I shared it on videos, and people have written me and said, no, I know this isn't how you really feel or whatever. And sometimes I get salty about it, but it's like literally, I like having conversations in a shop. Those of you who heard my interviews and other things, I do consulting work, I do other things. There are many times I'm not in the shop and I can't have conversations. And increasingly, unfortunately, in the area I live, the conversations are less often had than they used to be. I'll put it that way. I really enjoyed running my shop in other states far more than this one. But for conversations, for just good comic conversations. And so this approach is me doing that. That's what I like to talk and share ideas. And I do read all of the comments that go on, that you make. And it's a happy part of my day. And in a midst where we're dealing with pandemics and all this rest of this kind of nonsense, it's very nice to have that distraction, to be honest. So you guys are doing me a favor by just interacting and asking questions. This is very fun tonight. We had like 80 people at one point, which is shocking to me, but it's great. At the same time, that was a long lead into, there are channels like the Richard Meyer has like 100,000 or plus subs. I mean, they've got their business down. I'm just this tiny guy doing his thing. My advice would be, if you're going to do videos, be consistent about it. Get a schedule. If you're going to do reviews, do one a day. If you get real excited and you get 4 videos done, don't put them out on the same day, space them out. People love consistency. If they can come in, they can see something and it's consistent. It's helpful than just kind of all over the place. And then don't model yourself after some other YouTuber that's got way more subscribers. Very, very small chance you're going to get their audience. So if you try and be kind of Ethan Van Sciver light or dark, I mean, depending on which way you want to go with it, you're not going to emulate that. You're not going to get the same success. So if your goal is to get that subscribers, chasing somebody else's style, it won't work for you. But and then don't just be comfortable putting out a channel and doing your thing, and don't worry so much about whether the people come or not, and you'll be happier. And if you're happier, then your content will be better. And if your content's better, then people will come, and it all kind of works out. Facebook is garbage town, is my opinion. I know some people like it, some people don't. I just, on a personal account, I left it some time ago. And so I'm trying with Perch. I have something there, but it's just, it's goofy. I'm in a lot of Facebook chats or groups, I should say. And the kind of stuff that gets there is gross. I know the big story today is about this Whisper Network and everything else. It's not surprising to anyone that's been in one of these groups. And I made a comment, and some people took offense to it when I said this has been going on for a long time. I don't mean that as an excuse, like this is cool and should continue. This kind of weird, internal network where they try and cancel other people and all that kind of stuff. It's gross, but it's been gross for a long time. This isn't new news. And unfortunately, whenever you get a group of people together in comics, they always seem to immediately want to form these little cliques and then protect their interest, whether it's this group or that group. It always seems to go that way, and I freaking hate it. I don't like that. I don't. For the people who are friends with me, I'm in various chats and other things. I mean, you should just know I'm never going to ask you guys, anybody, to do anything. Like that's not my style, and I feel gross asking for it. So I wish less people would. But Facebook is kind of a dumpster town. Twitter I engage on. But I wish I had more time to do jokes. That's what I like to do with Twitter. But Anyway, that's a long answer.
You there? Oh. Oh boy. Oh. Oh. Hello, hello. Okay. I don't know what happened, but yeah, they got him. The Illuminati got him. It dropped. We'll reboot. Okay. Yeah. So hopefully that means I'm still here. I don't know. I'm not got the audio on the video. If anybody could hear me, please tell me. Or let's see. Oh God. Okay, but okay. Anybody have any questions for you? You can still put them in here. All right. The Whisper Network got him. Yes, the Whisper. So yes, we are. He's rebooting. He was derezzed on the grid. Yeah, and I'm here by myself, and I should not hear by myself. Good. Glad I'm being heard. I can hear you, Larry. Can you hear me? I better stop. I'm gonna drive everybody away. But until Perch comes back, anybody have any questions, any comments, anything like that? I'm reading the chat currently. RIP. Don't you do that, Ryan. RIP Perch. No. Ryan win, everyone. Gods and Gears. Go check that out. What's the current comics that you like? Currently, I've been going back and reading a lot of old stuff. The Lin Wein, Bernie Wrightson, Swamp Thing. I've been reading a lot of. When I say old, I mean a lot of Barry Windsor Smith. His Freebooters, which is kind of a Conan parody book that he put out in his Storyteller series that was unfinished at Dark Horse, but they collected most of it. Fantagraphics. A lot of my stuff is old comics. Stormwatch Team Achilles, by that Stolen Valerie. He lied about being in the Rangers, a guy named Micah Wright. But Willis Portacio doing the art and doing the colors. Oh, beautiful comic. It's a war comic. Aspects. Unfinished Stormwatch Team Achilles, by that Fantagraphics. Oh, getting feedback. Perch, you there, buddy? Cliff, my content, you can find it on Twitter at Larry King Undead on Twitter. You can also email me, Larry King Undead, Gmail. You can, for content, sell comics via PayPal. So yes, thank you, Brian.
Hey, everybody. Sorry about that.
You left me hanging, man.
I did leave you hanging. It's a classic move. Yeah.
Wait,
no, I'm still kind of confused.
Real quick. The Whisper Network may have got you. Are you who you say you are?
It's true. I've been replaced. No, it's I never actually had something like happen before. The Mac here just decided it had enough and just stopped. Like it ran out of battery, but it wasn't. So who knows? Man, just broke a machine doing this. Who knows? Anyway, sorry about that. Thank you, Larry, for going through. I love this just vanishing. That's great.
I was like, wait a second. If you're hosting, that means I'm gonna go away too. I'm talking to myself, and because I didn't have the audio on the video, because it was like delay, and it was like it really messed with my head. So I was like, we can hear you. And I'm like, oh crap! I'm gonna just say nothing bad.
It's it's the fun we have. I think this is
a Jim Ross moment. You're live, pal.
I'm very curious to see what happens now. So I've got like 3 computers set up here. So the computer that crashed is now slowly coming back up. We got that Apple logo with the little bar slowly going across. I'm curious what comes out the other end. This computer's hot as hell. I could like fry an egg on this thing.
Oh God, that's not good.
Anyway, always good. But yeah, we couldn't have come at a better time. I think this, the Whisper Network clearly got me. That's what was going on right there. So.
Trainwreck. I don't. Do we get to this one? What's a good way to break in? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I need to change questions here because now I'm back. But at any rate, so people have been asking, by the way, what do I think of this whole Whisper Network and everything else? I mean, and again, I apologize if it came this way in the video, but this wasn't a surprise. I guess is the big way for me to put it. The people who have been doing this thing, I mean, Alex DeCampi, Tess Fowler, have been doing this thing forever, and this isn't new information. So my first reaction was, well, yeah, and then, but this stuff has gone on for a long time, and the bigger question for me is always like, why does the industry tolerate this stuff, and why do we allow a handful of people, especially people who do not have contracts or are kind of on the outside, who have not proven a lot of selling abilities? Why do we allow them to have as much power as they have? It's weird. It makes no sense whatsoever. But here's where we are. But anyway, it's all silly. I wish, and not silly. Silly is actually too light a word. It's damaging. But the industry has enough ins and outs to it that people can. It is. People are finding new ways to get comics out. It's been a bumpy road for some people. I don't agree with some of the paths people have taken this direction necessarily, but it's good to know that you do have options to escape it. Even if it's not ideal, at least we have options to escape this kind of nonsense eventually. But anyway.
It's a mess. It's a lot of these people. It's like we're not talking about, if I'm not saying it wouldn't make it better no matter what, but if it was like Walt Simonson, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane is like the cabal, the illuminati, as it were, kind of like in the Marvel comics, except without with the panel van free puppies version of Namor that you posted.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. David Cross says
yeah.
Namor.
We need to get the new like as long as we're having fun with all this, or maybe not, we need to get what's the new Illuminati, what's the new, like who's the new cabal, and thinking about it, I think a hell of a funny comic strip of just like people in the past. Just picturing.
It's like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where they show different groups. It's like where you had like Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, Alex Toth, Sheldon Moldoff, whatever. And then now it's got you like they all look about the same, and they're all way less talented.
Yeah. Oh,
you got like creator of the Fourth World and Commandy, and the co-creator of Captain America, and then like. Had a pitch at Sci-Fi Channel, that kind of thing. It's like that's the most you got, okay? Wow, and matters.
I'm picturing a really funny like back room where Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and maybe Gil Kane are like plotting to murder Stan Lee. It would just be a funny. Maybe that's not funny. Actually, saying that out loud.
No, it's like it'll be better. Plotting to steal his toupee.
Yeah, there you go. That's a nicer way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at you look at some of his comics. You look at Stan Lee. It's like I never love Stan Lee, but dear Lord, everybody's like, oh, he's ambassador for comics. I know I'm gonna get heat for this. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
But he was in there for himself first and foremost. Comics was a means to an end. Sure. You have. But downside is. Would I ever want to be like Kirby? No, because he was so focused on creating. He couldn't, like one of the stories I read, he couldn't even go to a Toys R Us because he didn't want to see the character toys made of characters that he co-created. He get no money from stuff that he had hands in making, whether that be the Superpowers line or the Marvel stuff, whatever. It's like imagine everybody's wearing like, oh, get the toys, get the shirts. It's like you see none of that, and you're barely scraping by for years. It's like one of those like, and it's the Jack the Hack. Finding out about that, people like doing the Jack the Hack stuff to him at Marvel. So when he had to come back, because still had to make money. Isn't like the Ruby Spears stuff wasn't really paying the bills. Like that's just wow, so disrespectful. But hey, like I said, like if they'll do that to Jack Kirby, nobody's safe.
Yep. Yeah.
But
yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, it's at least Ditko till his dying days, he was still making comics.
Yep.
I mean, that was some creepy stuff that people put in in spy cams and it, like outside of hallways, or try to put in his outside the hallway of his where he worked, or inside, like try to get him to open up the door so they put like a little spy device. I'm like, that's like the guy just want to be left alone. Leave him alone. Let him do his work. He's not. But hey, Dan, that's people for you. It's like they make that mystery. They want to scratch the surface.
Steve Ditko is one of those creators I really want to do some videos on talking, because a lot of people don't know about some of the aspects of his past, but you want to do it justice. I don't want to do a casual, because he's got some crazy things in there that if they're done poorly, I don't want to. I wanted. There's a bunch of creators kind of that way, but hey, Ian, kind of related to the topic. Is there anything that normal fans can do about the Whisper Network? One key thing: buy what you like. That's the biggest thing you can do, and just buy what you like. And especially if you have a creator, there's some comments above with Robert Vendetti. If you like, for example, his content, buy it. Buy that content and keep going, and try not to get too connected in with all this stuff. It doesn't mean ignore it. It just means that, the way a lot of kind of whisper networks and cancel culture and a lot of that stuff works is, even if you're opposed to it, when you give it a lot of your life and your attention and your noise, you do empower it a bit. So just, you want to be careful not tipping over too far, where if you pay so much attention, you're actually giving it credibility. It's easy to find yourself there, even if you don't mean to be. It's very easy to do. Look at some of the videos that were done way like 2 or 3 years ago about, small, tiny indie creators. So, and they would get roasted, but the comics were so small. Like the Pervert is a classic example. That's a comic nobody knew anything about, and it wound up selling double what it would have sold just naturally because it got the attention. And so if you truly despise something, if you truly hate it, just think twice about giving it a lot of your energy, because you're going to wind up helping the thing you don't like very, very easily. That you can find that out. But anyway, I do love Hawkman by Vendetti. I think that's a great book right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. That first year of it, oh my god, best take on the character ever. Yeah. I thought I liked John's version, but yeah, Vendetti just he made it amazingly epic without making it. It felt like a grand story. It honestly reminded me of Authority, which with the Hitch art definitely, but the scope of everything like that. Authority was like 4 issues here, 4 issues here. It was like stretched out. Every issue delivered. It made me want to read the next ones. I can't wait. And it was great. But yeah, like you said, like, don't feed the beast. There was this saying, like, don't feed the trolls. Like, there are like, wow, this terrible comic with a terrible art. Why talk about it?
Well,
why give it like that right there? Is like,
just be cautious. Be cautious. I think this quote I have up there, rats breed in the dark. That's true too. So you have to find a good balance. If you just ignore the problems completely, then they can fester and they can keep going on. But the challenge is, and this is the thing I like to say, is balance your time. Go with your put energy to it, but make sure that you give an equal amount of energy to something healthier, to something that you actually do love. If you do that simple thing, where if you're constantly chasing the things that are making you mad and making you filled with outrage and everything else, just make sure you give an equal amount of time to things you actually like, and it will help you from tipping over completely into just chasing outrage and getting to the wrong place. You don't ignore it. When I say these things about, it's happened before, I'm not saying ignore it. I'm not saying, hey, just close your eyes and all the bad people will go away. No, but if you live just for that, you will be unhappy. You're unlikely to cause the good that you want to cause, and you're missing out on a lot of cool stuff at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot of these people. There's a lot of people that they give more. If you switched their hatred towards this kind of comic for the love of whatever comics is, like, you shouldn't have to go through my timeline on Twitter, Larry King Undead on Twitter, but going through that and seeing comics I love, comics that look interesting, and here's some amazing art by Bernie Wrightson. Do you need to check this? Is a comic I really enjoyed, and here's the reason why. A lot of people say, "Oh, this is a great comic." Well, why is it a great comic? Why do you like this? You don't have to go in like 50 tweets like you used to do, and like, go do a video, Perch. Go do a video, man. It's save people the reading time. Just put it in audio form, audio book version of your tweets. But a lot of these people, they'll say, "Oh, buy this comic; it's great." I'm like, why is it great? Why do you like it? It's like, even if I don't, it's like, the reason I like this is because this story, the character's journey, they go through whatever. Explain. Okay, I might not 100% agree with that, but I could see where that person's coming from, and it opens up a path of potentially going in and enjoying that. So, well, why do you like Adastra in Africa? Well, the origins, it's the third life-death story that Marvel turned down. Barry Windsor Smith said, I'm going to make this comic. I'm going to make the story of this goddess coming down to this tribe dealing with these terrors. They're plaguing this tribe. Beautiful black and white artwork, beautifully rendered by Barry Windsor Smith. The detail, the emotion, the character. You could see the years of wear and age and hardship that these people have dealt with. And you see this goddess who could easily be what troubles you does not concern me. I am a goddess from another, where I shrink myself down to the size of an average human, so you're not frightened and terrified by my true form, but I empathize with you mortals. That's a long form of version of saying how great it is, but that's what I'm saying. It's like these great comics. And there's a lot of people, but it looks like trash. Like, okay, good for you. But it's like, your passion's going to be a little misguided, but that's my opinion. And my opinion only matters as much as you let it matter.
It's absolutely true. It is, just try and balance, the goods and the bads. Just make sure that you don't lose perspective yourself. Because the worst thing to do is you're fighting against something you really hate. And you find, you look back on your life a year later and discover that you invested all your time into things you hate. They've taken something away from you. That you've given away your power. You've given away your own ability to enjoy your life. And just, I say this from experience. I've certainly chased things that I disliked, and you come to a conclusion later that, man, you just wasted so much time. And so you just have to almost sometimes force yourself to engage with things you like. Unfortunately, that does not mean find things you like about things you hate. That means find something new that you like, and you'll be a happier person. But hey, Larry, so the question, what's your favorite not big two publisher?
Currently, if it have to be anything, technically it's a cheat because it's IDW, but Europe Comics, reprinting a lot of the European stuff. That's where mainly the Corto Maltese, the Hugo Pratt stuff, and they are releasing more of them. And I believe some of the earlier volumes that were never translated, or if they were translated, they haven't been through the Europe Comics imprint. Yes, IDW, which they're supposed to go out of business a while back, they still haven't. I'm going to ride that wave of their they, as bad as some of their licensed comics are. Dear God, they're bringing stuff over like Dark Horse used to do. Dark Horse used to have some pretty good stuff. Same thing with Epic, the whole Marvel imprint, where they used to have the Mobius comics, Airtight Garage, and so on and so forth. We need English Mobius reprints. I don't want to read in French. I want English. I want oversized. I want original art sized, how they did it in the UK. But nope, the way they did it in Europe. I got a lot of the Blueberry stuff. So yeah, we need more Mobius in the world. He may be gone, but he definitely is not forgotten. And Parable, my thoughts on Stan Lee being what they are. Silver Surfer Parable, best Silver Surfer comic ever.
Wonderful, absolutely a wonderful comic. Yeah,
2 issues.
We're going to have to do a video of like the things people haven't heard about, because there's some great ones. But there's some good things. I think Vault is doing some good work. I like what Boom has done. I think they've got some good stuff. I mean, my heart's always with Shueisha out of Japan for many reasons. I have many friends who are at Viz still, and there's generally good people everywhere, and this is where maybe it gets tricky, because I mean any publisher, any place. I've had people who've been good to me, and again, I know I've taken some lumps from people from various times. There's many creators who are bad to other people but good to me, and so then I have to kind of balance. I'm glad you're good to me, but I'm watching you be bad to my friends or other people. You're doing bad work for the industry, so it's a complex thing. But there are some good comics out there. The shame of it is there's the amount of what I'd say anti-marketing is far bigger than the pro-marketing, and maybe that's why I harp on this a little bit too much. Is that there are tiny comics. I think Ash just mentioned it in the chat. Actually, is that there are some really good comics. Yeah, here it is on the shelves that are getting no sales, and they desperately need our oxygen. They need some promotion from us, because these are people who are not involved in the culture war, who are just trying to put out good books and everything else, but they're the amount of attention they get is just so much smaller than some of the more negative comments, which is just a shame.
And that's one of those issues of comics in general. A lot of these people, it's the marketing side of it. It's like if you're doing it on social media, Twitter, YouTube, wherever, Facebook, problem with Facebook is like, oh, you want to market? Oh yeah, you want to get above this certain level, especially if you get popular enough, you got to pay. Oh, we're gonna restrict you. We're gonna choke you out. But Twitter, YouTube, little videos, content, like you don't have to be, amazing. Like you don't want to spend like thousands of dollars, but little stuff. Talk about your comic. Why is it interesting? Why should someone care about it? Maybe do a reading from, I don't know, have like a panel and maybe sans the word balloons or a couple panels, and then do like kind of like a motion comic, but like kind of read along. Anything. I usually do GIFs. Here's the page. And please, for the love of God, if you're going to do your comic, especially if it's a creator-owned work, have some passion about it. Dear God, it's like a lot of these people. It's like they're coming from a funeral. Like their families died, their dog has died, and they got fired from the job, and their car broke down. It's like I thought, just passion, some love for your comic. I mean, this ain't a country western song. I mean, come on, country western is the emo for the cowboys, as it were. It's like out in the range and I'm feeling blue. But yeah,
it's true. It's true. I think that, and this is where I offer just like I will help market anything. If anybody's hearing this later, you have a book, I will come on and do a pitch video for you just for the sake of being excited about something. Just let me at it, because please, I it's so painful to me. There's some really good kind of heartfelt people out there who are putting their life into some really solid books, and then you get to it and it's like when they're promoting their stuff, it's just like it's a funeral, and it's like you put all this effort into your book and you could not sound less interested in the comic that you're producing. Like, what are you doing? Reach out, ask for help. By the way, almost the same advice goes for Marvel. Like right now, regardless of all this, I will personally write your solicitations for free in my spare time, just so they don't suck. Like, please. Please.
It'd be a mercy upon you and others.
Yes, I mean, and then there's so many people. I mean, like, God, I know there's some people from the big two that dip in on these things from time to time. Like myself, others. I know many people who, at intern rates or free, will help write some of your marketing for you, and just please take advantage of it. Please, please, you're killing yourself. We're here, like free labor. Let us help you. But it is crazy. Just to conclude on that last bit, I just want to clarify again. In no way when I talk about these topics and I say things like you should ignore it or don't put too much energy toward it. I guess I'd say the wrong at the beginning. I'm not saying you should ignore it. Don't ignore it. Don't just close your eyes, pretend it doesn't go away. Just don't let it consume your life. That's my only point. We're coming up on 2 hours, which is a lot of time for everybody. I wanted to at least offer, if there's any last questions, I want to give Larry some chance at the end, not the beginning, to just tell people where you can find your books and other things. But kind of throw it in there. Any kind of last questions, get them in. I will try and do streams more often. I'll get various guests on. It's been great having Larry on. I always do stuff with Larry. And we'll get some other people on here too to give some advice. But more and more, I'll try and do some streams. It's fun to just talk comics. I'll get to a better system where I don't lose all the comments. The chat's just going. Again, I don't know why I'm always surprised. I see more than 4 people show up and I'm shocked. And so that's always crazy. There is a question here, although weirdly. Here we go. Okay. So Paul asks, some of my favorite videos of yours when you meticulously go through monthly solicitations for different publishers. Do you plan on doing more frequently in the future? Yes, I absolutely will. I enjoy doing them. Here's something funny though, kind of a behind the scenes. I think Larry's heard this story. But what I did was I put the previous catalog on my iPad. I started recording, and then I was going through the solicitations on it. And about midway through, I kept talking. And it looked like my iPad was still recording what was on the screen, but it just stopped. Like it got like 5 pages into Marvel, and it's like, screw it. I don't.
It harakiri'd on Marvel. It's like nope.
Exactly. It just wouldn't. And I'm seeing it later, and it just got sluggish. I've never seen a video recording. I've done lots of video recording. I've done time lapse drawings. A lot of the stuff I've done for my comic that's coming out. I'm recording videos of the drawings, and it's never done this before. But it's just reading a basic PDF, and it got slower, and then just stopped. And I was joking with Larry about it. It felt like the iPad itself was like, no, this is a waste of my time. I'm not going to record it. Forget it. And it just, but I will do more of these. I absolutely will. They're fun. How do I feel about Lois Lane? I like Lois Lane. I'm Lois Lane's biggest fan, actually. I'm a huge fan of Lois Lane. Huge. I'm the biggest fan. Huge fan. You know.
Now we know you're Matt Fraction. Matt Fraction, take your mask off.
No. Bendis. Well, or Matt Fraction.
No, he's the one. Well, no, that's ain't he writing the Lois Lane book though?
No, that's Brubaker. But this was really popularized. Bendis, for whatever reason, he's got to have every villain say they love Lois Lane, and you're always like, they're villains. Why does she care? Like, this isn't helping her. But you know, Lois Lane is an interesting character. I do like Lois Lane. I think Lois Lane is, like all things, have been written well and been written terrible. I think that her current state in the DC universe is not its best. I really liked when they reintroduced the Superman Lois family with John. I mean, that a couple of years ago, that Tomasi, that was some great stuff. So more of that for sure. So
yeah, I like Lois, but I like her in.
Oh, Greg Rucka. What the F am I saying? No, not Brubaker. God, it has been a long time. Yes, Greg Rucka, not Brubaker. Yes, yes, absolutely. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking. Sorry about that. Yeah, press F for Perch. Yes.
But Lois Lane in particular, I like her when, like, okay, as a supporting character, I with the whole. Oh God, was it I'm blanking on the writer's name, but the rebirth, you know, with the whole, you know, being the wife, being the reporter, being the mother to Jonathan, which, you know, that's gone now. Thanks DC. I really like the whole family dynamic. I like.
By the way, it was funny because I reviewed the Deceased, and they've got John Kent, and they've aged him up kind of naturally through that story. He's older now, and he's taken on the mantle of Superman, Damian's Batman, everything else through the newest Deceased, Dead Earth. And you see it like, this is how it kind of naturally could have gone. And it's like so much more natural, so better, that it's like Tom Taylor has this parallel universe where they didn't screw it all up. And you look at that like, wow, you think of all the stories you gave up of John kind of coming of age, having a different villain set.
Imagine him going on a date with a girl from, I don't know, Kandor, or some Kryptonian
sure.
or a human girl, not necessarily doing like a Archie Riverdale thing, but dealing with a credible villain who, like, this, whatever, like, you know, that kind of thing, like this. And then maybe it's heartbroken and having to realize, guess what, dude? Bullets will bounce off of you, but there's certain things, and like maybe like, you know, kind of like there's gonna be things in life that you can't handle with your fists, that you're gonna have to emotionally deal with and overcome it and learn to grow as a person. That's been given away for what? So it could be a part. Get him out of the way so I can write Superman the way I want. I mean, they threw away such story potential. And
so
it felt so good to actually see character growth and realistic character growth where it felt so natural. And just to see Superman with Lois and John, and I mean, this is beautiful. And then they just threw it all in the garbage because of a guy who was hot 15 years ago as far as writing goes. This, you know, and he looked like a worm then too, but whatever. But coming in, and we have just wasted. What was it? A couple years worth of growth, all the way since.
Insane.
Yeah,
insane. It's as a writer, I think, never give away potential. Like you have all these storytelling options that you could do, and you make your world smaller. It didn't make it bigger. The Legion of Superheroes has like roughly 5 billion characters in it, so you have plenty of characters that you could use the Legion of Super. You don't have to have John sandwiched in there, or you could just, it's the future. Write it at an older age. Create the weird storyline where he's a kid in the current Superman book, and then his older self, the teenage self, comes back and is like, hey, it's me from the future. I mean, do whatever you want, but you don't give away storytelling abilities, and you pissed away so many story ideas. It was insane. Absolutely.
It looks like they just didn't want to, like, it's what happens when you give somebody carte blanche. And that right there, that's one of those things, like, you could reel someone in. You can do this, you can't do this. But the idea of a blank check, here you go, was just so much story potential. The Super Sons,
it's a good book. Hey, well,
that right there, if you want to get, that's a comic that could, if they just stuck, because honestly, just like Marvel, they have a lot of the books. They have way too many books at times. I mean, they're pushing all this content. You can only have so much, and they, no time, no market, and also the marketing issue. How is somebody going to go out and buy this book when they don't even know it exists?
There are people who didn't like Super Sons, and that's fine. Some people like it, some people don't. There's comics for everyone. But even if you didn't like that book and what was going on there, the storytelling abilities to have these characters running around was super valuable. So to close that door in favor of what was a weird stunt of having him kind of with the dad, who's everybody's already forgotten, that whole, like, that storyline just came and went and just gone. And you have the Legion of Superheroes over there that is kind of still stuttering to get out the gate. It's not doing well. And it just what a crazy reduction of value in your company. I've always, again, whether you love Bendis, hate Bendis, whatever it happens to be, you never walk into something trying to subtract value from your company. And where now everybody just kind of hopes that at some point they could do kind of Rebirth to Electric Boogaloo and, have Tomasi do Super Sons twice. I mean, crazy.
Or said that, like, John was actually, that the John that was aged up was not that John. There you go. Something, anything. Just get the real deal back, or just ignore it altogether. Oh, what? When that never happened? What do you mean, Legion of Superheroes? We don't know what's going on. Yeah. What are you talking about? Oh, that never happened.
It's crazy. And again, you can like it, hate it, whatever else. It doesn't. The key is when you have storytelling possibilities in front of you, like, you don't throw it away. It's just nuts. Don't close the door for other writers who might be able to do something powerful about it. But
exactly, don't punish, intellectual property, story potential, because you don't have the vision or the talent to make this work.
Or the interest.
It's honestly how I feel about Monica Rambeau. A lot of these people, Monica is Captain Marvel to me. That was my Captain Marvel. I didn't know about Captain. I always thought, Shazam. I knew of that. The guy in red with the lightning bolt on his chest, and then I would see in Wizard Mage, the Kevin Matchstick, the whole Mage, the Matt Wagner comic. That right there. But to me, when I heard Captain Marvel, I thought of Monica Rambeau. I thought of the leader of the Avengers team member, who struggled to be-find her place within the team, but made her way. And then it's like, well, you know, we're going to push the son of the original Captain Marvel. We're going to do this. We're going to do, and then she just languished, you know, terrible names for, and like, you know, for forever. And it's like they still really do nothing with her, and it's unfortunate. Like if they were going to, I'm pretty sure the only reason they even do anything with it because they feel kind of maybe guilty. And like, there's no one that's got her back at Marvel. That's clear. You know, no one's saying like, yeah, we gotta get her. You know,
I think that, you know, when I did the Avengers reviews as well, going through kind of the Avengers Academy and some of those, it was amazing to me how there's a lot of really good characters that were brought up and created that then they just kind of discarded and moved on to the next thing. And Monica Rambeau always felt that way to me. You got this character that had you know, decades of build and value and was the leader of the Avengers and was really, you know, progressive for the time. You've got a African-American woman leading the Avengers and doing it well, you know, having good conflict and everything else, and great power set, strong, and they just kind of it felt like everybody just kind of like, well, we're done with that. We'll move on to the next thing. And it's like same kind of thing, by the way, with DC with when they did the New 52, and they had Alan Scott. I did the video about this recently. He had his son, who was gay, Obsidian, and they kind of erase Obsidian from existence and have Alan Scott be gay. But you had to eliminate, like, if your goal is to create more representation in comics, you had to remove one. A gay character you had that was
established,
and people liked and had a good personality and a character, and was
20,
like,
he's like 25 years old at that point, right? Because it's like mid-80s, Justice Inc. And then he was in the Jeff Johns, the Justice Society with the Legacy Heroes, alongside his father and alongside Wildcat 2, Wildcat 3, the son of Wildcat, the manimal version of Wildcat, and and Red Tornado 3, the Mahunkle's granddaughter, the ginger, one of the few gingers in comics. But yeah, they threw away this character. And Obsidian is a great character. Same thing. Jade. Oh God.
Yeah.
To me, Jade. I'd rather see when I first came across Jade. I was Kyle Rayner. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'd rather read a Jade-centric Green Lantern comic. Nothing but her. But I liked her more as a character, because also the tie back to the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, because I was starting to get into the history of the characters. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I love this depth. And then, of course, Hal had to come back, of course. Barry had to come back, of course. You can't, Legacy Heroes. What's that? We don't know about that.
It's just odd. I mean, it's odd because you have some real value. I mean, this is where I think unfortunately, a lot of people who are creators in the companies right now either don't like or don't want to deal with legacy, and they do struggle with this idea of investment into characters. And so you have some that have decades of years of investment, and they see that as a problem, not a benefit. They see it as something to hate. That this continuity and all its history makes the character harder to write and worse. And so they want to just discard and kind of start fresh with a blank slate. But unfortunately, a blank slate is just that. It's a blank slate. You don't have any emotional attachment to these characters. It feels very shallow and superficial. You like Naomi as a character may wind up being great in 10, 15 years or whatever. There may be, this character may be remembered and everything else. But as a reader, I don't feel like they're going to give it the chance. I feel like they pushed out Naomi. They advertised it at DC. They you got to read this. It's a hot new book and everything else. And then I feel like in 2 to 3 years, they're going to be like, well, we need a new blank slate again to write a character. So let's kind of dump Naomi in the garbage and start again. And it's like you're never building up any equity in your line if you constantly do that. And it feels like that's where they are.
I totally agree, because you look at these characters, you have so many characters they don't even touch, don't even bother. Like, so many characters in reserve. It's like, I understand they want to make they want to make their footprint. So if that character shows up in a movie or TV show, you got money from that. It's a way to secure money. But at the end of the day, are you actually making something quality? Or it's like you're telling me that, I don't know, a character like Naomi is better than Natasha Irons. She was one of the best things that happened out of the 52. Kind of giving her more of a spotlight. Granted, she had spotlight in the past, but it was a year's worth weekly comics with her being a major part for a lot of it. And you're dealing with in a way, she's a legacy character taking up the mantle of Steel, and that whole dealing with a human character in a superhuman world, where in very much ways she's female Iron Man. Oh yeah, before Riri, and it's to me, she was a far better character, and I've enjoyed her when she showed up in the past. I can't remember the last time I read her that I enjoyed. It's been like a lot of the DC stuff, especially when they did the New 52. I tried some of it out. I'm like, this is terrible.
But here's, I mean, and it's the question. So there's people in the chat are talking about this. So you take a book like Naomi, which I do think has potential, and I do think can be a book that can sell and a character that will work. But the problem is that there's a belief, and I'm not talking from me, but from customers and shoppers, and people who come in, and nobody believes that book is going to be around in 2 years. So even whether they like it or they hate it, that almost doesn't matter. Nobody really believes that this is going to be something that DC is really going to invest in, and it's a character that you can grow with. And one thing about comics is we've got 60 years more of history with a lot of these characters, and so you have to play the long game. If there are people who like Naomi, the answer is don't overexpose her. Don't try and shove her too quickly up, or there'll be a backlash of fans against her. Put some good writers on her. Make sure that she's, in some stories that are compelling, everything else, and just wait it out. But what we've seen from Marvel and DC, and again, whether you like the character, hate the character, whatever it happens to be, they seem inclined to want to very quickly discard and then start new. And when you're always starting new, none of these characters matter. They get forgotten. If I right now put up a ticker of all the characters who vanished over the last 30 years, not even that, last 10 years, that just never had a chance to really go anywhere because it seemed like people got bored and moved on. It's a waste. And so I feel like Naomi, again, like her or hate her or somewhere in between, I have no real confidence that comic is going to be around in 2 to 3 years, or people have moved on to the next thing, and that's the problem. And Ash asks here, I don't understand. Well, let me see here. I got to get back to this heavy metal question here. I don't understand how you think a godly Mary Sue character has nothing has potential. Every character has potential with the right writer. And by the way, some people like that character. It's cool. That's actually not my argument is whether the character is good or bad or anything else. It's that they're being treated like junk food at the publishers. They're like fast food. They come and they go and they're gone. And that's a problem.
I agree, because with Dominic Powell, it's like legacy should be respected for new characters to let them grow organically, so it could leave the market first. Allow readers to get to know them. Look at Simon Baz, Jessica Cruz, and others. I dislike Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz because they just feel like, hey, let's just add more Green Lanterns to 2814, add more decimal points to it. And while you have all these other characters, all underserviced characters like Jade, for example, and these other, Green Lantern centric, but these new characters just feel like, hey, I want to get, in case this Green Lantern shows up in a cartoon or toy, or I want my payday. Because apparently DC, Warner Brothers, has a very good, compensation. And that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like a character. Oh, Simon Baz, well, he's a, minority. I'm like, okay, well, how about come from, he's Lebanese, supposedly. Lebanese American. How about have come from, Lebanon or the Middle East? Kondak. There you go. This guy in Kondak is about to be gunned down, or some Middle Eastern fictional country in the DC universe. And he's going to stand up. He's like, I'm going to take these. I know I'm going to die, but at least I'm going to shield some of that power of will, no fear. The Green Lantern ring comes on and he takes out these terrorists and he saves these people. Doesn't have to always be from America. I'm tired of heroes comics. Miss Marvel. Why can't she just be from the Middle East? And then maybe you have an arc down the line where she comes to America. It's like, or she it doesn't she likes her. Her homeland has problems, but she wants to help out there. No, it's like they always got to be American. It's like in a world, I understand it's an American audience, but we can. You can relate. It's like, well, if we don't make them American, they're not human. That's what it feels like.
No, it's true. It's I think this is where some people I think suspect that I'm this secret person who loves all the far right stuff and everything else. And so when I say these things like, Captain Marvel could be a good character or so on, these kinds of things, that I don't actually mean it. I'm disingenuous, but I do. I want these characters to succeed. I do like Monica Rambeau. I would go head to head with anybody around her trivia. I can, show my receipts that I like that character. And I think that a lot of these cases, whether I like a specific character or not, somewhat irrelevant. I just want to see the character used well. In the chat, they're talking about the new age of heroes. In 12 months, you could put a gun to the head of the average comic fan, and they could not tell you who those heroes. Maybe they could name one or two, but generally they're going to be lost to memory. And it's this idea that, I hate to say it again, is that the comic books are being treated like fast food, where It's an initial buzz. You get a #1 issue sold, maybe go 6 issues, you lose interest, you go on to the other thing. Yes, some of it's what you're talking about, where people are trying to get royalties for the TV rights and all the rest. But it's a lack of care. You have all this legacy. I will say that Jessica Cruz, in her handling in Justice League Odyssey, has fleshed out that character to where, the character might have a chance that she's actually going to, keep going and everything else. She's not getting lost in the shuffle of just more Green Lanterns just showing up on Earth for no apparent reason. There's a lot of investment that these people come in. Ash says he can name all 3, and some will, yes, Ash, but most won't. And for something that had a big marketing campaign, came out, got canceled, left, you should not be able, this stuff shouldn't get erased from memory within 2 years. That's insane if you think about it. And I do, again, there's people in the chat who are saying they like Naomi. Again, I think Naomi could do just fine, but you do need a writer that is actually going to commit. So again, whether you like Bendis or not, it's a commitment more I'm talking about. You need a writer who's going to commit, who's going to put the effort into building that character. There were people when Monica Rambeau first came out who didn't like that character. And then over the course of like 60 issues, they earned it. They built up something really quality there. Monica Rambeau's in somebody put out in Strike Force right now, but Strike Force as a comic feels like there's no commitment to it. I mean, everybody expects that book to get erased, to vanish. The Agents of Wakanda book today was announced. It's been canceled, or we've seen its last issue. It's just gone. So for all the world building and characters that showed up there, I mean, I guess they're just gone. So we can kind of wait around, and maybe they'll show up in some other book. Maybe they won't. And it's a problem. Stuff feels disposable. So that's why I always kind of squint a little bit when people say, no, we are committing to more diversity in the comic books, and we want to have these new characters. Sounds great. But you had like 30 of them that you threw out the window. So how committed really are you? That's my question.
The whole idea of the New Warriors and characters like that, these young, youthful characters who are, rarely do they like, we're, they don't really do the whole, hey, gosh, golly, gee, guys, let's go out there and kick some butt. They struggle. They have, personality clashes, which makes very good, interesting stories. We're dealing with comics that don't have that going on. They don't have threats. They have jokey quips and one-liners and everything. And I know, you've said this in the past, and I agree to an extent. The idea of the comics should be more like the films. What's this, like Captain America is, questioning himself yet again and doing this research, like this doesn't look like the movies or anything like that. But then again, I say that the movies are the weakest takes on any of the characters, and except for DC does pretty good because their take on Zod with Michael Shannon and even Terrence Stamp is better than a comic Zod has ever been, which is great. But when you look at a lot of these characters, the way they're not, you can only do so much in a 2-hour film. Mm-hmm. Even if it's part of like a 20 film series or what have you. But these comic characters should be, like you said, they throw in the baby out with the bathwater. You have so many characters that you have not dealt with. Where's Firestar? Where's, Justice? Where is, I don't know, any of these characters. You go and the New Warriors. You go look at, you can have 2 Nighthawks. You can have the Nighthawk from the Supreme Power, the Straczynski and Gary Frank comic. You can have the Nighthawk from the 70s. You can have the Squadron Supreme, and 2 Batmans hanging out together. One black, one white, kind of a Lethal Weapon type. Like where you can have older white Kyle Richards. Can I get the tool for this? That kind of deal. And you get both going out in like street level crime and shadows and fighting, even though one looks like a 1970s race car driver with his powder blue and yellow fringes, depending on what costume variant. But you have these 2 different ways of going about it, and I'd like to see something along those lines. Like these characters, they kind of throw away. You'll see them pop up every now and then, but they're it's like it's like we got the Yeti to show up. He's hugging someone to death. That kind of deal.
It's just it's very strange. I think these comics, And this is where you're hoping that an editor-in-chief or someone, and this is where I think it's really falling down at the big publishers, of you have diverse characters, you have diverse situations. Comics, if you ran a comic shop in the early 90s, you had a lot of diversity going on of all of races, of genders, of sexuality, all that kind of stuff in the comics. They were there, in many cases being written very well. And that groundwork was laid. So I always get irritated, and this is where maybe people get confused. I'm not irritated with people saying we want to have that in comics. Go for it. I get irritated with the fact that you had it in comics. I'm bothered because you don't know your own history. You don't know the work you put in. It always feels very disrespectful to me for a lot of creators who, frankly, in much tougher times, were creating some of these characters and some of this diversity when it was, frankly, harder to do so. I have no evidence to suggest it's the case. So, but my guess is that when somebody pitched the idea of making a black woman the leader of the Avengers, there were probably a few people in that bullpen who are not thrilled with that idea. Today, people are acting like we're doing something brave and we're going to get it, but everybody's cool with it now. I mean, why aren't we respecting kind of the tough work that happened in the 80s, where that was probably more of a feat? And you put in that work, like, you should be proud. You should invest more in that. It's nuts for me, but anyway.
Well, there's very few people with the quality of Roger Stern's writing out there now. I as much as I've enjoyed some of Jason Aaron's work, his Marvel work has been, especially X-Men and Avengers, has been atrocious, to put it politely. The snoo version of She-Hulk.
Yeah, I don't get that one. I don't. And again, it's you want to make She-Hulk ugly, you want to do whatever you want. I'm fine, but it's like I don't get the handling of that character. It's very, and this is the anal retentive part of me. Like, why is she hulked out? Why is she talking in like one syllable Hulk-like words, but then she's thinking in coherent sentences? I like what's going on there? Yeah.
It could be Aaron just trolling. I want to say that. I know it's not the case. Probably,
yeah, could be,
but it's like he dislikes. It's like, I can write garbage and people still buy it. It's like that. It kind of feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I want to get to this heavy metal question, and we need to do that. But Alton Davis just writes real quick. I don't want to lose the point of the chat because then the question will vanish. But is a diversity in markets even worth chasing after 10 years of failure? Diversity isn't the problem, and the market. This is where this argument is very difficult, and it's probably more time than we have now. But there have been cases. Like somebody else said, diversity has a long and pretty rich history in comics, and many times it's been handled really, really well. I think it was in the 80s and 90s, it was handled far better in many cases than other mediums were. I think you can make a very strong argument in the late 80s that kind of these topics were far more handled with more tact and depth than they were on TV or in movies. I think that's how Neil Gaiman got a lot of his credit, and Grant Morrison and Alan Moore, like we talked about earlier. I mean, a lot of these things were really put together well. And so there's a track record where this can be absolutely successful. The problem is right now we live in this strange time where the market, especially from the big two, have created a structure where on paper things are profitable, things look like they're doing well, but it's not healthy. I mean, comic shops will tell you things aren't healthy, but the numbers on paper suggest that, hey, we had a great year. But if you really do the analysis, you didn't have a great year. So there's anyway, it's a big topic. There's a lot of ins and outs here. Unfortunately it's not a simple one, but something to maybe next time we'll do the live stream. We can get into this topic because it's like there's 50 million little offshoots to this argument, and it's a really nuanced, tough conversation to have. And unfortunately, it doesn't fit into a 10-minute video well. But
that's one of those issues. I mean, you have so much. There's nuances. There's a lot of people like it's a yes or no answer. I mean, it ain't always that simple. I mean, there's certain things. It's like, is Golden Age an amazing comic? Yes. It's simple. Yes. Art, writing. Yes, it's great. the reissue cover is terrible, though. I don't know if you've seen that one. The
yes.
the collage. It looks like, hey, I saw The Incredibles too. I'm gonna make the cover look like the wall and Bob. No, we need the nuclear bomb and the blast with the Capitol building and all the heroes question mark. That kind of thing. With that amazing image, like, wow, that's a poster. That's a movie poster for like priming you for a lawnmower, like a 2-stroke mower or a weed eater for a experience. But a lot of these comics, like they can't be. The comics topics cannot be simply. You have to go into depth. Yep. I'm game for that, and it's one of those things. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say for it, and your opinions and thoughts. Yeah. Like you said, like you're not all seeing expert and all this and that, and like all knowing, but you know enough where you put enough of it out there so that you can, you intelligently explain everything. Unlike me, which I just ramble.
No, I'll ramble. Don't get me wrong. But it is a hard conversation. Unfortunately, it's where just saying it just honestly with my perspective is why I hear a lot of other commentary. I don't listen to anywhere near the amount of other shows and others I used to. But it always feels like people kind of scratch at the surface of this topic, or they talk about one aspect of it and not the others. And so it creates this unbalanced argument about, how healthy is the comic industry? What are the big flaws in the comic industry? What are the big problems? It's a very, very messy, gummed together situation. And I really want to have that conversation in its totality, and not just hey, let's talk about one specific aspect of it, because it always feels like that's the trap. You talk about one piece of it, you don't talk about the others, and so it creates this imbalanced thing that just keeps the feud rolling. Nothing really changes, but anyway. Here, let me throw this up real quick, and I said we were going to kind of bail out about 40 minutes ago, but it's just so much fun talking to you, Larry, and the chat.
Well, I agree as well. It's like a conversation. When I had my old comic shop back before they screwed me over, and then they eventually went out of business. The same one that would have a cat in. The one I told you about, the cat would scratch people and even scratch kids, and it had a fire ant hill inside and a bad HVAC unit that would make comic books warp because of the moisture and the cold air blowing on the comics make them warp. I used to hang in there with some people and just talk until way after the shop closed, like hours after. Well, we were there like one night, almost like 11 o'clock at night, because we got pizza. Had pizza delivered to there, and they brought drinks too and everything like that. So right there, just hanging out at the shop, eating pizza, talking comics, other stuff, movies, listening to some music, some vinyl records, and everything like that. It was a pretty good time. This is kind of like that, except you didn't screw me over.
Good. Yes.
It was the comic book screw job, I didn't have to spit in your face, Bret Hart style.
It all comes back to wrestling. Absolutely.
Yes, honestly, comic books and wrestling are so much alike. You look at the your clique. Yeah. That's McFarlane, that's Liefeld, Lee, and so on. You'd say Vern Gagne would be like Jim Shooter. He had hot talent, but then lost it. That kind of deal. Like there's a couple of overlaps. Like one person can be multiple and everything like that.
Well, I wanted to answer Jazam Band, who I'm going to do we should just have you on. You'd be a great guest to talk to as well. I think I want to say off the offset, I'm trying to balance the shows that I do, because I do get a lot of questions in, and I want to be respectful to it. I'm trying to address some of the scandals that are going on, but I'm trying to do it in a non-sensational way. I don't always succeed. I just will say it outright. But I'm trying to provide at least some more context to what's going on, because if you just pay attention to Facebook and Twitter, you get a very shallow, inaccurate view of what's going on. And unfortunately, and a lot of the videos, not putting any shade toward anyone, they go really immediately to outrage and kind of hot takes. And so I'm trying to lay out information where you can make up your own mind. That's always my point, or what I try and accomplish. But my heart clearly, if you listen to the videos, my heart's clearly in talking about comics and storylines and that kind of stuff. So I try and give you a little bit of everything. And hopefully if there's stuff that you guys don't like, then don't listen to it. That's what I recommend. But the question here is thoughts on Heavy Metal's new editors, issue 300, new direction. This is kind of a complex question. So I think the direction, in terms of, and here's where I may have it right, new stories, new titles, new creative teams. And then really it feels like the comic, as they say, are trying to tee up some content that can then be pushed over to Netflix and streaming. A lot of people are doing that. But it is, I think there's a world for anthologies that's needed. I like seeing some of the names on here. Certainly Mobius, having some more work there. Columbus, Sprouse, Blake Norcott. I think I'm interested to see what some of those creators have to do. Heavy metal has a weird legacy where, it really hasn't. It doesn't feel like it's really achieved what it needs to in recent times. So I'm glad that it's, that it's at least promising to do different things. Now, I don't know much about, the editors and the people that are coming in. I know we got Joseph Illage, who's going to play a role here. And I'll put it this way. I want this to succeed. I don't know if it can, because I don't know that it can. I guess that's the easiest way to say it, but it needs to. I really want it to. I want this to work. But I feel like comics needs anthologies like this. But I'm a little skeptical if this will do the job or not. So we'll see how it all goes. How's that for an answer? What do you think, Larry?
I think it's a good answer. I mean, you're looking at, you have pretty much unlimited talk time, parts. You can make a video in parts, a series on this, on that. You can, you have like unlimited resources as far as that goes, as well as, people to, if you want to bring in experts on certain topics, you got that taken care of. I see a question in the comments relates to this. Alton Davis asks, "What can comics learn from wrestling about portraying women in mixed gender audience for mixed gender audience?" Well, I got to go back up. I've often pondered this. I commented that the Japanese are best at it because you look at characters like, pretty much the Japanese, the female pro or the Joshi wrestlers a lot of them gorgeous, and a lot of them, you can go back to Bull Nakano back in the early 90s, the female wrestler who was like this big beefy Japanese woman with a spiky hair, looks like and she would destroy, and amazing. I mean, you look at a lot of them the American female wrestlers at the time, pretty terrible. Stiff. There's some that are good. Under Blaze wasn't too bad, but a lot of them were not that great. But the Japanese and both the way, One Piece, sexy female characters, but strong female characters, interesting fleshed out characters in general. Rumiko Takahashi, there you go, writing and illustrating and making these comics that appeal to both male and female demographics. The Japanese have it locked down. Same thing with the wrestling when it comes to stuff where they can do hardcore stuff, they can do flippy stuff. They probably do all mud shows, as they say. But there's a lot of these comics as well as wrestling out there that the Japanese just do it better. And when you were mentioning outside the big two, when you said like Viz and I guarantee Viz is I'd like to say Viz is bigger than Marvel and DC. I'd like to say that combined, wouldn't it? Because considering how the stretch, the scope, and how many readers they have, both physically and traditionally, would just dwarf Marvel and DC's readership, even with the events. And
for sure. I think, this is where I wish companies, it'll tie back to something we talked about very early in the stream, is that I think that there's some things to learn from the European market. There's some things to learn from the Japanese market. It often confuses me with the reach and ability and kind of knowledge. And C.B. Cebulski came from really researching that market, why some of those approaches and abilities have not been brought in. I mean, my opinion, and some people have argued with me very fiercely, just to put that out there as a disclaimer. My opinion is that the Japanese market for manga is far more representative toward women who have gotten more power, more storytelling ability. There's another side to this argument for sure. This is just my outside opinion, is that it seems like it's easier to go big and kind of make a lot of money. Rumiko Takahashi is rich, like crazy, like crazy. She's like the J.K. Rowling of Japan, not at that exact level, but just in terms of having her brand and her money. And granted, there's plenty of women who have not succeeded in Japan, so it's not like it's the perfect environment for all that. But there's some real success stories, and it often makes me wonder why in the West We're not, looking at some of those success stories and say, huh, they did some things that worked over there, rather than kind of invent or cram something in over here. Why don't we learn from that over there? Why don't we take advantage of that? It feels wasteful.
I think there's also more of a respect for it outside the U.S., where we went full on like we had radio, but then we went TV and movies and everything like that. Now video games, whereas everywhere else, they're usually commute. There's usually mass transit, public transportation, all that kind of thing, and so you have time to read. You could sit down and read, and reading is seen as worthwhile. Here in America, it's like you check texting, going on checking Twitter, Facebook, what have you, and that's not really reading. It's not really consuming novels. Yes, there are ebooks and everything like that, and still comics out there, but also the price point as well. I mean, I have not looked at the price recently. I think it's like about $7 US for one of the weekly. It's like $7 US. So it would be like equivalent, but you're talking about what, 200, 300 pages a week.
Not quite that, but pretty strong. I mean, honestly, if and I don't want to push people toward manga, but if you like any of that content, the Shonen Jump app or the subscription, first of all, you get a ton of stuff just free. But if you want to see how to do digital right, and I know I've done videos on this, but if you want to see doing digital in a way that's going to get mass adoption, that app, just the amount of content you get for free, and then for a tiny subscription price, you just get mountains. I mean, you get enough content where you can read uninterrupted for a year, no problem. And you've got 100 different genres. I mean, it's an insane amount of content for a low price point. And it is a problem, I think, for Western comics, because when people start, I see a lot of people who start with manga and they start to get involved and it hooks them, and they never come back. And it's even though it is cheaper paper, or it is black and white, or it is some of these things, the price point is just so much more friendly, and the themes often do a much better job of hooking you quickly and keeping you. It's like they're kind of One Piece as a piece of content is so easy to just start reading and get into, and it's very. And then when you discover you can read 600 other stories, it's game over at that point. And I think that's something people have to figure out. But anyway,
I honestly think there's also just issue in general culturally, the big cultural differences here in the States,
100%,
where everybody forgets post World War II. I mean, book burning, that's what Nazis do. Well, comic books are causing delinquency. How about these kids that grew up without fathers, while their fathers were drafted and or volunteered to fight, whether in the Pacific or European theaters, or even North African and Italian and everything like that. European theater there, but North African theater and other combat, they come back with PTSD, they're drunks, and if they come back at all, and so you got these women are not used to, they barely deal with a kid that would probably, husband's probably beating them, the kids are out setting fires, killing cats, stabbing people, what have you. Wow, this kid, he stabbed this person, or he robbed this person. Oh, he's reading comics must be the cause, let's burn comics. And like, there's photos out there, people burning comics. And the whole the Kefauver hearings and everything like that, you're dealing with people. This is, and you listen to Frederick Wertham, you listen to this German, you listen to this guy that he should be wearing a swastika armband. The way he's acting, and blaming a medium, blaming a form of entertainment. It's like, well, clearly there's a phone in the household. Clearly the phone is the problem with the youth today. The phone is what's caused them to go out and do these crimes. That kind of deal. It's like, it's stupid.
No, absolutely. There's a trio of comments here that I think are kind of dead on, and it starts with some. So yes, first of all, manga is not a replacement for American comics. But what is happening is it's becoming a replacement for the American dollar, meaning the consumer dollar. If you are, have a limited budget, we're seeing more and more dollars flow into there, and it's not something that, well, I mean, it's a replacement for someone's time is what's happening, and that's something that should worry people. But manga is addictive and instantly forgettable most of the time. This is an interesting comment, because a lot of comics, both Western and I think Europe is a little bit different, but Western and Japanese manga comics do have that kind of junk food feel in some cases, where you read it and then it doesn't really have a lot of lasting impact. but but then the price difference kicks in. And if you're junk food is great, people love it. I mean, McDonald's is clearly surviving just fine. But if a Big Mac cost $20, they would sell less Big Macs because and that's kind of a little bit what's happening is that manga is so cheap that you don't mind that it's forgettable. You don't mind that it's throwaway in a lot of cases because you're getting the value that you think is correct. And then I think some of these comments of differences in manga. There's definitely some differences. Again, they're not apples to oranges or apples to apples. I've been talking so much I'm losing my mind, but it is they're different products. But the threat here is that it's becoming a more acceptable product in the West for people to just go to because it's cheaper, it's quickly consumable. You throw it away when you're done, and you move on with your life, and that's becoming a better fit for a lot of people than what Western comics are putting out. And it's I don't know, it's very interesting kind of what's going on, and I think they've not everything that goes on in Japan with manga fits over here, but there are some definite lessons to be learned. I do think they've got the analogy format locked down a lot better than what they've tried here in the US. I think the price point's better. I think they have a digital strategy. And I think that they're a little bit more fearless when it comes to different genres and putting them out there, where the US, and I don't know that I'm describing this well, and then I'll give up, but it feels often, and it's kind of the same point I was making with Naomi earlier, it feels often like these publishers and these creators are putting like half a foot in. They're not going all in. So as a reader, you can almost sense a hesitation to some of these things. And especially on the publisher, you could tell when a publisher doesn't have confidence in the book. There was some complaining about Future Foundation and the fact that it didn't, it got canceled so quickly and everything else. And how could this have happened? Well, the biggest, death to that comic was not, some guy on YouTube making a roast video on it. The death was that the publisher, it just smelled like the publisher didn't have confidence in the book. And so as soon as that happens, people don't buy in, and then it dies. But that's part of the problem here.
Yeah, exactly. They build a lot of these books in the last 7 or 8 issues, and they like kind of a unsung, unspoken thing. It's like, well, 7, 8 issues. Well, you can kill it then, and you feel it. Like you said, you can feel it in a lot of these comics. Like they start out, and it's like, yeah, this is like getting maybe 7 issues tops, and then that's what happens. It's gone. And a lot of these people, like they don't, like you said, they do not want to commit. They're, that they were like, well, it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, sitting on the fence, truly sitting on the fence when it comes to these comics. Like either this comic is worth putting the money in the writer and the artist and the colorist and the letterer and the time and effort and conference calls and back and forth between the writer and artist and editors doing this, that, whatever, if they're doing their jobs properly or if they're doing them at all and all that, just to get like 6 months, 7 months worth of it. And that's it. It's gone. Maybe it might get collected. Who cares? And that right there, there's no vision. There's no creative vision behind these things. Like a lot of them feel like just going through the motion. Well, we got to have this comic come out. We got to have this comic. We got to keep the IP for. You could put it as a backup. It's like test it out, whatever. I don't know. These kind of there are ways to go about it, but a lot of these comics, there's too many. Like Marvel has way too many comics. They're like, who's reading this? The comic that when you did your Marvel thing, reading through Carol's Super Suit comic or whatever. It's like do their own Venom, and it's like doing a new Venom comic or whatever. It's like Venom and the rest of the symbiotes and the Green Lantern Corps, all these things. You go to the well one too many times. Like I don't care. I don't care about the Indigo Corps, the whatever. These things.
It's so self-defeating. Let's say for a moment, just for everybody, let's say for a moment that what you really want to do is you want to push out, you want to make Miss Marvel a huge character. And I think Marvel had it in the very beginning. They had a character that felt new, felt fresh, actually felt like Spider-Man back in the 60s. It had that kind of feel to it. It got an audience. It started to build it up and everything else. And then it's like they can't help themselves. They immediately just start jamming it into other comics. They put her places where it doesn't make sense. I mean, you move from a brand new character, Miss Marvel, to a member of the Avengers within, I think, 3 years. I mean, a really short time span, way too fast for kind of that build, and with all the comics in Marvel has going on. And so as a reader, you start to think, Marvel doesn't necessarily care about any of these things, so why should I? And it's causing maybe good ideas, maybe good characters to die way before their time. And it's a screwed up system. They are publishing way too much right now, and it's causing things not to stick. I think that there's lots of things, that lots of ways. I still maintain almost any character can be successful, but you have to invest in it. You have to put a good creative team on it. You have to prove to the audience you care as much as you want them to care. And that's, again, without making any judgment calls to any character, that's a lot of comics feel like, nobody really cares, but they want you to spend your money. They want you to spend $4 a month on it, but they don't really care. And if it goes away, then who cares? It's off to the next one. That's just how it feels. But
I got a good analogy for that. And I probably should move in at this about 3 hours, dude.
Yeah, we need to wrap this up, but yeah.
I am a fan of fried potatoes and onions, where you take some, you cut some potatoes up, skin them, you peel them, you cut them up, you boil them, you dry them, and then you cut them up a little bit more, and you fry them up in a pan with oil, some onions. They taste great, especially, at a pork chop or a steak or something along those lines. That's great.
Yeah.
Downside is if you put too many potatoes in a pot or a pan. Like sometimes I like to use a pot because I can put a little bit more oil in there and not have to worry about it splattering or any of the potatoes flying out and end up on the stove or in between the grates and everything like that of the burner elements. But what happens is a lot of the time there's potatoes at the bottom that you can't get to will get burnt. And while the potatoes at the top, because of the steam coming off the potatoes on the bottom, will turn into mush.
Yep.
A lot of these comics end up as mush. And a lot of the other comics, like your Avengers, end up as the burnt stuff at the bottom, where it's like, oh, this could be so good. You have
great analogy.
You have Jason Aaron, scalped, Southern bastards. That you have these comics, these amazing comics. You have Ed McGuinness, Superman, Batman, Deadpool. This guy is like, got marquee names on these with these two guys. And what you get is burnt garbage that you can't eat. But it's still there, but you can't really eat.
It's self-defeating. And it is a case where, you want, as a retailer, I want all these things to sell amazingly well. I would love for the 80 books or so that they're putting out a month, or we're putting out a month, I'd like them all to sell over 100,000. I'd be rich. But when you put too much into the pot, like you say, is a great analogy, or whether you maybe emotionally you want this character to be a big deal, but if you do it the wrong way, they're not going to be. No matter how much you scream and cry about it, they're going to get lost in the shuffle, and that's what is going on. It's a great analogy. Now, I've had you for 3 hours, and I really appreciate everybody for sticking with us. We stayed an extra hour from since we were wrapping it up because I can't stop talking. But this is so much fun. Please check out Larry at the below. Follow him on Twitter. He's putting out comics. This is one of these guys who's just pumping out comics his own way. He's not asking for $50 a pop or any of that. He's got good product out there, and he's definitely worth checking out. I love people who are just getting it done themselves. It's great. So thank you, Larry, for coming on and doing this.
You're very welcome. Like I said, you can find me on Twitter at Larry King Undead. You can email if you're not on Twitter for whatever reason, like say you don't want to mess with that.
Don't blame you.
Larry King Undead at gmail.com. My comics, I have new ones in stock scheduled later this month in the next couple of weeks or early August. With the COVID-19 and with protests and other stuff and businesses and things it's a tentative thing, but I will not put anything on sale until I actually have product on hand, and I will have any inquiries. I can easily show the first couple pages if asked, cover images as well, costs, what have you, and shipping information if you are outside the US and wish to purchase comics. And also I do sell digital PDFs. I don't do CBZs or anything like that. I've had people try to walk me through it. I'm like, I just do PDFs. If that ain't good enough, I'm sorry. I That's all I'm gonna do. But reasonable prices. $1.50. Well, actually, yeah. We'll talk. Well, haven't had to sell any lately. Everybody's wanting physical. Thank goodness. Yeah, everyone wants that print media. They want that print media, which is good. But thank you for having me on, Perch. This is great. You in the chat, you all have been lovely. You're beautiful people.
I love it.
Love yourselves, because you have been a steaming, fired up chat. This is like boom, boiling with energy.
It's good. I'm thrilled. I mean, I'm very thankful again. I mean it. This isn't me being like fake humble or anything. I'm always shocked when people show up. So thank you. I love talking to all of you. It's a great time, and yeah, I'm humbled. It's really great that it's great that we get a chance to talk, especially with everything going on. We need more opportunities to do this. So I'll do live streams more often, and never from the car. You guys would trust me not enjoy that experience any more than I would. But otherwise, keep sending comments, suggestions. I'll go through the chat and see if I can pull some topics and talk through them and try and do this regularly. But thank you all. I really appreciate it, especially those of you who've subscribed and all that great stuff. It's great. And I should have an announcement here pretty soon. Because with these advertisements that I don't like, I'm going to try and take all that money and then throw it back into getting comics made by people who make comics. That's my plan. So put it somewhere where we can get some good comments out of it.
Lemonade out of lemons.
Lemonade out of lemons, exactly. So thank you all. Thank you very much. See you later.